If you haven't already signed up, there's forms around the room, or you can go up to Acting Clerk Stonich and fill your name out to sign up for any item that's on or public comment today. Diane ran, give it one more minute here.
That's right, he's retired already. He's already checked out.
Call.
Trustee Senning.
Here.
Trustee O'Shea.
Here.
Trustee McGinley.
Here.
Trustee Lattisek.
Here.
Trustee Kenwood.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
President Demos.
Aye.
I like the backwards calling of the roll, too.
Trustee Clark could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. There's nothing listed under item D, village recognition, so we'll move on to audience participation. This is a point where you can speak about any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have, Al, do we have people signed up?
Just a moment, President Demos. Any item besides what's already on, not on the agenda, correct?
Right.
Okay. No, there's nothing else.
Would anybody, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak about an item that is not on tonight? We'll move on to consent agenda. Would any trustees like to remove any item from consent agenda for individual consideration tonight? Manager Franz, if you could please read the consent agenda into the record.
Yes, the following items are considered routine business by the village board and will be approved in a single vote as listed as follows. Item number 1, approve proposal of Ramsey Historical Consultants of Chicago, Illinois for 2017-18 Architectural Resource Survey in the amount of $28,700 and authorize the village to accept a grant award from the Illinois Historic Preservation Association after completion of the survey in the approximate amount of $20,090. Item number 2, approve the purchase of fitness equipment for the police facility from Direct Fitness Solutions of Mundelein, Illinois in the amount not to exceed $49,000. Item number 3, authorize the village manager to execute a consulting agreement with CBRE Inc. of Chicago, Illinois to assist with the development of the McChesney site, contingent on the execution of a reimbursement of fees agreement by Spring Bank. And item number 4, authorize the village manager to execute a license agreement with the Glen Ellen Chamber of Commerce for the 810 North Main property.
Are there any trustee questions on any of these 4 items?
On 2 and 3.
Why don't you start with 2?
Number 2 is the $49,000 part of the $13.5 million budget, or is that a separate item?
It's a separate item. It'll be paid for out of the insurance fund and out of C's funds.
The agreement with CBRE,
Yes.
is it my understanding that the fees that will be paid to them are going to be paid back out of the escrow fund deposited by the developer?
That is correct.
Is there any estimate of what that cost would be?
Somewhere in the $40,000 to $60,000 range.
That's all I have.
Just on 2, are we gonna sell the equipment we have that's here, or are we keeping that for the rest of the staff, or?
Yeah, we'll just keep that what's here for the
So
staff
will
in the
remain
civic
a
center.
workout facility for people within the building?
Yes, limited, but we'll have something, yes.
Did other people besides the police officers use it?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
And are we expecting any other costs that would not be under the 13.5 of this nature?
No, I don't think so. I can't think of any. Chief Norton, anything else outside of the 13.5 that's still forthcoming?
On the building overall?
Yeah, the building overall.
Absolutely not. As promised, this building is going to be on or under budget, and I'm happy to report it's going to be completed early.
I guess if I were to ask you, could the funds for the building fund this equipment and still come in on budget? Would that be possible, or do you,
It could. It could, if you wanted to take it out of the programming. We're not at a point in this process, obviously due to weather, that we're currently experiencing, and because of the grading and stuff going on there now, I can't tell you how close it is, but if I were to ballpark it at this point, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd say we're 50, I'm sorry, Manager Franz, correct me if I forgot there were more than one Marks up there. If I was going to ballpark it, I'd say we're anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 under budget, subject to change based on unforeseen issues between now and getting the keys.
But these seized funds and insurance funds are available, and they've been programmed in to this budget all along, so I don't think it's necessary to make a budget change at this point.
well, I guess I don't know what the procedure is. I don't know if it's worth pulling at this point, but I guess I would just ask, if we approve this and we do end up having additional money, can we just use the additional money to pay for this and not use the funds you currently have budgeted and use those for something else? Is that a possibility or not?
Well, whatever money we don't use for this project will go back to capital funds anyway, so it's you know, there's some options here with the unused funds.
Okay, so either way, that money's coming back?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank
Can I ask
you.
one more clarifying point? That training, workout facility is open to all staff, correct?
It is, we would have to sort out some security procedures and things like that. And again, if we have something at the Civic Center and that's being utilized by employees, I don't know how much is going to actually end up being used, but.
Right, well, since we don't know what the Civic Center will look like yet, I just
Sure.
want to make sure that that's a possibility.
That's correct.
It is a possibility, and we talked about this, and with the secure parking and then the amount of parking spots that there are, and there were some proposed problems. But I think that would just be a policy issue that would be discussed and determined in the future, but that's just really a matter of policy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 4.
Second?
Second. Are there any public comments on tonight's consent agenda? May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood,
Yes.
Trustee Lattisak,
Yes.
Trustee McGinley,
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea,
Yes.
Trustee Senni.
Aye.
Wonderful, the consent agenda carries. The next is 461 North Park variation. Director Holzberg.
761?
761 North Park.
Thank you, President Demos. This is a request by Ray Whalen, and he is the owner of the property at 761 North Park, and he is requesting two variations. The first is for a lot coverage variation of 24.5%, which is greater than the 20% maximum that's allowed by code. I do want to mention that he has since requested that that variation be reduced from 24.5% to 22%. He's also requesting a height variation for a new single-family home to have a height at the ridge of 38 feet and an eave height of 26 feet, when only 35 feet and 25 feet are allowed for those. The property itself, you can see on the overhead screen, is the one with the red dot, and it is located on the east side of North Park Boulevard between Muirwood Drive and Oak Street. While this map is up on the overhead screen, I did want to show that we did receive correspondence from a number of property owners in the area. Those that have the darker line, the darker blue around them, were in favor of the variation, and those that had the red lines around them were not in favor of the variation. Of course, as it was initially requested, and as I mentioned, he's reducing his request for lot coverage ratio. The property was purchased in 2003. It was a larger lot. And in 2012, the petitioner demolished the house and subdivided the lot. He did construct a single-family home on 757 North Park Boulevard, which is this property, but he has not yet constructed a home on the subject property right here. And that is, one of the reasons is it has a pretty significant slope, 20 feet from the front to the rear. The Zoning Board of Appeals held a public hearing on March 28th, and the zoning board did feel that the slope on the lot created a hardship for the height of the structure. Because the way the zoning code requires that we measure building height by average surrounding grade, it really did have an impact on this lot because of the significant slope. However, they did not feel that there was a hardship for the lot coverage ratio request because they felt that the petitioner had subdivided the lot and it was vacant, and therefore usually they don't grant variations for vacant lots because it's basically a blank canvas as they described it. So we went back and double-checked the village's records, and in 2010, going back to 2010, we found that the ZBA has only granted one variation for lot coverage ratio in the past 7 years. The Zoning Board of Appeals did vote to recommend approval of the height variation by a vote of 4-1, and recommended denial of the lot coverage ratio variation by a vote of 5-0. And we have prepared an ordinance that reflects the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation. However, if there are any changes, we certainly can do that.
On the denial, it was, the request at the denial hearing was for, what was percentage, was it?
24.5%.
And the amended request at
22%.
22%.
Stacy, what was, I missed the vote on the lot coverage ratio on the 24.5%.
So they voted unanimously to recommend denial, 5-0.
Stacy, what is, has staff reviewed the 22% request?
Yes.
Okay, and what's staff's professional opinion at this point?
Well, that's why we went back and looked at the historical perspective of, the Plan Commission has granted some lot coverage variations for vacant lots, but the ZBA hasn't. They've only done that one. That was a really unique situation. However, we are looking at amending the code, and actually at an upcoming Plan Commission meeting are looking at some administrative adjustments up to 10%, and this would be within that classification. And so if the board were to approve that at a future date, they could get an administrative variation for up to 22%, so we'd be comfortable with that.
The existing code is 20% lot coverage.
Correct.
So then what percentage with the bonus detached garage? So they could build a 20% home without a variation with a square footage bonus garage of
500 square feet.
500 square feet. So how does that relate then, structure as far as lot coverage?
So he would be able to, if we were to allow him that detached garage bonus, he'd be able to construct what he's requesting.
The 500-foot allowance takes you up to the 25% or 24 point whatever percent.
Yes.
Right?
24.5.
Do we, let me just see a show of hands. Are there members of the public that are here to speak about this item tonight? So why don't we hear from the petitioner at this point so we can?
The owner, who I would sell it to, are going to speak.
Okay, wonderful.
Be more than willing to answer any technical questions.
Wonderful. Why don't you come up and speak at this point?
Thank you. My name's Keith Kluge. I currently reside in Glen Ellen at 194 Glen Arbor Court. I'm representing the petitioner Ray Whalen this evening. I am not affiliated with Ray Whalen Building. I am not affiliated with the architecture or engineering firms that provided input into the zoning board meeting in late March. I am speaking on behalf of my wife, who drove by this lot in the wintertime, opportunistically looking for new homes and new lots, and decided this is the one she fell in love with and wanted to build our new family home. We started this probably in early January. We've met twice with Ray to get a better understanding of the lot and the history. We've discussed with him our interest in the types of things that we're looking for our potential new home here. We've discussed some of the interesting items around the topology, that some of those things were highlighted earlier around the grade of the lot. It's a wonderful wooded area. It has a lot of more than 40 trees on the northern and eastern borders of that property. We're looking for an opportunity here in a variance based on our family's need for a similar size home to what we have. Looking at the uniqueness of that lot and our view that there's a hardship associated with the inability, in all honesty, to create a detached garage and receive the bonus that was talked about earlier. As part of this, our understanding, as I think was highlighted, is that we would probably be able to, with a detached garage on a flat piece of land, be able to get approximately 24.5% lot coverage ratio on this particular property based on existing ordinances. My understanding also, though, is based on the uniqueness of this lot and seeing where a detached garage would go, I am concerned both from a safety perspective and environmental standpoint and just the aesthetics consistent with the neighborhood that there's going to be issues there. So if you don't mind, I'd spend just a minute kind of just highlighting a couple of things that I'm concerned about as far as potentially going down the path of a detached garage. So first and foremost is the safety. So even though it's probably 80 to 90 feet from the lot line to where the garage would be in the back of the house, there is a 10-foot drop between the beginning and that point. So it's probably a 5 to 6 degree grade drop from the lot line to where the garage would be. Starts out like this and then goes like this about halfway through. So if obviously those of us that don't drive in the Chicago area all the time and go to Tennessee or Pennsylvania, anytime you get over 3 or 4% grade, there's notices all over the place to beware and make sure that there's caution, especially for the large trucks. So with 3 teenagers to be in our family, youngest one's here today, and recognizing that they're going to be driving soon, I am very concerned about their ability and safety of getting up and down that particular grade, at night or when the weather's bad. So, personally, myself, I'm not exactly enthusiastic about it either. I feel there's a higher degree of risk associated with either personal injury or property damage by having that severe of a grade with a detached garage. From an environmental standpoint, as I mentioned, there's a number of trees in the area. If there was a detached garage that was put on the property, we would have to remove a significant portion more than if there was not on that northern border. In addition, just where the location would be, there is, in addition to the property there are wooded areas of various lots that are attached to that property. And the aesthetics standpoint of having now a garage in that general wooded area, to me, would also be somewhat of a challenge for the neighbors being there. As part of the environmental piece, is my understanding, based on the conversations at the zoning board, that it would likely be approximately 1,100 square feet of additional concrete that would be required on the lot, which is effectively 10% of the lot area. So if you add in the detached garage, 500 square foot bonus, an overall 24.5% of the lot coverage ratio, and add in an additional 10% of incremental concrete, it's a significant portion of the lot. And based on that grade, there are concerns from a potential drainage or a runoff standpoint and how that would impact the area, not only our particular lot, but the lots around it. So one of the reasons that we're coming here again is to acknowledge and ask for that variance. We heard what the zoning board mentioned as far as their feedback on the 24.5%. We wanted to make sure that we were clarifying our ask is not necessarily to build the biggest house that is absolutely possible on that particular piece of property, but to actually develop a home that's fit for purpose. So we're looking for some incremental additional square footage on the first floor to be able to do things like address our wonderful kids' multiple travel teams and all of their gear, and be able to put that somewhere that would not be tripping over on a regular basis. So mudroom area storage is the primary focus, and we made sure that we were looking at this from what was absolutely needed and be able to have a similar size home to what we have today, and make sure that we were not asking for more than was required, so that there was no confusion around an intent either by the builder or ourselves to build the biggest home and get the highest profits, or for us to be there with the intent to flip this and get something else. We've lived in our current home for 15 years. We are looking at this property as an opportunity for us to get closer to the high school and spend a significant amount of additional time with our family in Glen Ellen. So we're not looking at this as a short-term opportunity, but as a long-term place for our family and our home. So just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak, and happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Do we have any trustee questions on this?
I'll be recusing myself from the vote.
I also will be recusing myself from the vote.
So
Can I
then, just a point of order here then, with 2 recusals, it'll take 4, I'm sorry?
No, just
Oh.
think about it.
It'll take 4 trustee votes. I would not get an opportunity to vote on the lot coverage variation, so
Okay.
just a note of procedure.
So I have a couple questions, but there may be more for staff, so do I wait?
Yeah, Stacy's ready to go.
So it sounds like I heard some very strong environmental trade-offs here. Less concrete for more trees, less salt on concrete, et cetera, et cetera. What is it, is this house, is it harsher on the environment on the lot itself because it's 24 versus 22 or 20, the way it's configured? I mean, the extra spaces that you drive into the garage, which is part of the house, right?
So if they were to install a detached garage, the extra lot coverage, I think that was being described as the actual pavement of the driveway to get to the detached garage in the back. So there's more impervious surface. The way we calculate lot coverage ratio is different than a lot of other communities. We only count the roofed over structures. So we don't count the actual driveway surface where a lot of other communities do. So the argument was they would be covering actually more surface of the lot, which would negatively impact the drainage than if they were given the lot coverage ratio variation.
So in effect, the roof is bigger from 22 to 24. That's the effect on the property, the water coming off the roof.
Right, so yeah, there's more, the coverage of the footprint of the home is a little bit bigger. From 20 to, it would cover, instead of 20, maximum of 20%, it would be 22% of the lot.
Now, with such a steep grade, isn't that water only going one place?
It's gonna go downhill no matter what, but the issue is there's less area for it to be absorbed into the ground because there'll be so much more pavement.
And is there anything they could do to mitigate that on the property itself or where the water went?
Well, it would have to go through a stormwater review. It would have to comply with DuPage County stormwater ordinance. We do require dry wells to compensate, but that's only, it only helps up to a certain storm event because it has a maximum capacity of how much water it can hold, and then everything overflows and sheet flows the way it will. The rain currently flows, the stormwater on the property currently flows the way it's going to have to continue to flow in the future. So with the house that they're proposing, plus the detached garage, plus the driveway, that coverage of the lot reduces how much can get absorbed, and so it's still going to go to the same direction. It's just going to be more water heading that direction.
But if I had the detached garage, I would still have the same size roof pouring that water on the lot. That's all going in the same spot, right?
Correct. So the detached garage bonus, it was intended when it was written into the zoning code to encourage a certain character of homes. This is why we have a front porch bonus as well. So one of the unintended consequences of the lot coverage ratio is the fact that we cover more of a lot with impervious surfaces.
Well, 'cause I think the way I interpreted some of the arguments was they could build a smaller house and meet the lot coverage ratio.
Yes.
But then their other option is say, okay, forget it, we'll just build the house we wanna build and do the garage, and it's net the same lot coverage ratio and the same amount of water. I guess I'm not seeing the trade-off, and maybe one of you guys can help me out here, but I'm not seeing the trade-off benefit of not approving the 22.4 and have them go ahead with a detached garage that's now gonna be 25 or 24.5, putting more water on the property versus the trade-off of the cement and saving some trees, and salt and safety and all that. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
So you want to Trustee Kenwood? Trustee Kenwood?
No?
Over here.
Oh. Yes.
I just want to clarify, so you are actually proposing to approve the to deny the denial and approve the 24.5?
Well, I'm trying to
Oh,
get
he's
at
saying
what's
24?
the
No, the 22.
22 point.
So you're talking about the 22, because you mentioned the 24.5.
Yeah, I mean, they've already come back and said we can build something that we can live with at 22 point whatever, right?
Okay.
And I'm trying to understand the trade-off. If I'm the one that has this property and we deny it, then I'll build my
Right, okay,
house,
exactly,
and I'll
I'm with
build
you.
the garage, and now I'm up to 24.5. And with all the environmental impacts that don't make sense to me, but maybe you guys are more water people than I am, so help me understand this here.
I'm actually in agreement with you. I think I've sat through many of these requests, but after the homes are usually built or they're changing it, from detached to detached, et cetera. And I do believe, I think that's why the planning department is reviewing that particular variant or lot coverage ratio requirement in ordinance. So I do not have a problem with approving the 22% because it will be less coverage overall.
Can you give me some sense? I take it the objections that have been posed by some homeowners have been to the 24.5 proposal.
Correct.
The 22, the current one, has that been communicated to anyone, and do you have any feedback on
Not
that?
as far as I know, no.
All right.
Petitioner's saying no.
What's kind of the concerns of some of the homeowners who have expressed their concern about this? The surrounding people, what are they troubled by?
I've reached out to them and have had no comment. There was one adjacent neighbor that tried to acquire a portion of that property, and I told him I was unable to, and without, being a kind resident, without getting into it, received an email that I don't think was directed to me. So I think it was a little bit of, in my own opinion, that they were upset because I wouldn't sell them a portion of a lot that I couldn't make a substandard lot in Glen Ellyn.
How many objections have you received, other than that one?
That was the individual that spearheaded the objection. I don't have the number, I think staff.
8.
7 versus 15.
15,
Or 8.
8, I think
8 who are opposed.
8. Yes.
Is there any common theme amongst the 8 who oppose as to why they feel this would be improper?
I don't.
Did they submit any type of written objection, or how did they communicate their objection to the proposed
I believe we
variance?
received a petition.
Just
I
a
don't have it
signed
with me, though.
petition?
Yes. Do you want to come up, Ray?
Yes.
It was a signed petition that was the similar language as it was opposing. It just said it was against it versus approving it.
Okay. Offered no reason for that?
No, sir.
And none of those have communicated any reason to you directly as to what their objection is? We don't want this?
I haven't been unable to speak to any of them. I've written emails, I've contacted them, I've knocked on doors, and unfortunately, I do not have an answer for you.
Okay.
Ray, the balance of the neighborhood there, is it attached or detached garages? Do you know, have you done any frontal survey of that area predominantly?
I have numbers here.
Have-
Yeah. So, a quick informal,
Excuse me, sir.
A quick informal survey of the 3 blocks from Muirwood down to Linden. There's approximately 40 properties. I believe there are 3 that have only detached garages, and there's a couple more that have both attached and detached. So I would assume it was from some sort of variance or perhaps that, but there's only 3 that have only detached garages on those 3 blocks.
Stacy, could you get back up for, I have a question for you directly. So it seems like the choice in this variation is just to deny it, they can build a house at 20% and then add the additional 4.5% with the detached garage and the additional impervious surface. Or we can look to approve 22% or some point less than that. But could they then accept that variation and then build a detached garage, or would we do that? And I know you're shaking your head no, Ray, but I'm talking about what you might change your mind to do in the future. I want to understand what the options are here.
If, first of all, the ordinance would be subject to the condition that the home was built as shown on the plans. Second of all, we would put something in the ordinance that said that they wouldn't be allowed to have a detached garage so that they couldn't take advantage of the bonus.
And if the house winds up not being built, how long does this variation stay with the property?
So the variation runs with the property indefinitely, provided whoever builds on it builds under the same circumstances and under the same conditions that this variance was granted.
Okay. Any additional trustee questions? Are there any public comments on this item? Is there a consensus of thought on how, it seems as though the decision here is allow it to be built with a 24.5 with the detached garage, or hold it to a 22 with a attached garage, seems to be the question. Are there any thoughts?
I favor the 22%.
May I make
Well, you can if you hop up there, because you can talk about all the individual items, so it won't take time away from another thing. Go ahead.
just a quick,
Wonderful.
you asked for public comment on this issue, but
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had asked if anybody was going to speak. I didn't see raise your hand. Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Mark Southard. I live at 550 St. Charles Road, Glen Ellen. I just wanted to commend the board for considering the wishes of the neighbors in this instance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? Any further thoughts here? Or would we entertain a motion as is, or do we want to entertain an amended motion?
Well,
Or an amended motion, not emotion.
well, the other option is to go back to the planning commission to have them re-review this. Is that right?
It would be the zoning board. of
Zoning
appeals.
board to review this?
I'm completely comfortable with the 22%. Although, you know, the idea of having the zoning board of appeals review it, I would support, because I think, given the change that has occurred since they did look at it, in deference and respect to them, we should give them a chance to weigh in on it.
I would support the 22% as well.
The motion as written, however, is that at 24.5?
Right, so we would amend it to the
So you'd have to
22.
amend it to that.
It would still require, to overturn the recommendation of a denial of the variation, would require 4 trustees to vote in favor of overturning the recommendation.
I mean, I would be okay saying in spirit, I approve it and take it back through zoning to come back up here if we need to. Is this time sensitive for you guys?
We had hoped to move in before she gets to high school. Not her, the other one.
Oh, I think you had some time with that one.
That would be the only.
What would be the timing on review by zoning?
I was just gonna ask that. Stacy, you give a quick timeline. We're probably talking 90 days, right? Before it would get approved by the board. second
Yes,
time.
we'd have to republish for a new public hearing and put out public notification, signage, and do letters again. And the next agenda that we could get it on, we're probably looking at about 45 to 60 days.
Jeez.
For the ZBA.
Oh, no, until it got back here.
Back here.
Before I get back here?
Mhm.
Well, considering that there's no testimony or information or explanation other than a simple, we object, and the petitioner is compromised, and this fits in with previous approved, I am very comfortable with moving forward with the 22% without going back to the ZBA.
I would agree. The environmental benefits here outweigh.
I mean, if they could go back next week, I would have said, let's do it contingent.
Right.
But
60 days.
Agreed. And I
Do we
would
want
agree as
to
well.
make an amended motion then? Dean?
Yeah, I'm looking here. We're approving, we are still talking about approving the variations from ridge and eva height limitations.
Correct.
And approving a variation from the lot coverage ratio requirements to allow new construction. Well, how do we get the 22% in there?
At a 22%
Lot coverage.
lot coverage ratio.
Right.
With the condition that no detached garage can be built. So do we have a second?
Second.
Any further deliberations? May I have a roll call of the four trustees, please?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood.
Yes.
Trustee Lattiser.
No, you
Recuse.
got it
Okay.
wrong.
Trustee McKinley.
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea.
Recuse.
Trustee Senni.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is item H, finalize the sale of property at 825 North Main Street. You want to, before we go into a public hearing, and actually introduce the topic? Or do you want to introduce the topic?
No, I think introduce the topic, and then we can talk about the public hearing.
May I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
It would seem, my understanding is that there's a liquor license as well. Are we premature in doing the sale before we all agree on the liquor?
Well, that
Should-
would only come up after this vote.
Pardon me?
That would only come up after this vote.
Isn't that one of the conditions of the purchase?
It is one of the conditions of the contract and the purchase of the property, yes.
So shouldn't we come to agreement on that first before we,
The liquor license,
before we okay the sale?
that would be a,
I think we can talk about the sale directly. If we're going to deny the liquor license, then it would affect the conditions of the sale. Item H is really pulling all of the individual conditions and everything in and making them a part of the final sale to make sure that 24-hour and all the restrictions and the conditions and all the changes are incorporated and accepted. I'm comfortable with this in this order.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
yeah, and again, just as the president said, this is to consider accepting the acceptance of the conditions related to hours of operation, accepting the limitation of being open from 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. Every day, as well as the condition related to landscaping. And it also would have the effect of altering the contract to the extent that if it takes longer than 30 days, which the contract now provides that the property shall close, it allows for an extension if for whatever reasons, the parties are unable to close within 30 days. So that would, those are the two things really that are up. This board approved unanimously a little over a year ago, the entry into the contract, including the liquor position, provision. And so really what remains is a cleanup of, and final details of the project.
Does that suffice for summary? You want me to?
Do you want to continue with any aspects of introduction?
Yeah, let me just do a little summary of where we are with this project. So, on September 27, 2010, the Village Board approved Resolution 1021, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 825 North Main Street for the purposes of demolishing an old rundown gas station structure and reselling the property for commercial redevelopment. Since that time, the village has worked diligently to clean up the property, develop a plan for the property, market the property, and ultimately get the property back on the tax rolls. On February 22nd, 2016, the village determined that it's in the best interest of the village and its residents that the property be sold and developed commercially for the purpose of construction of a gas station and convenience store to place the property back on the tax rolls and generate sales tax. At that meeting, the village approved a property sale and purchase agreement contract with True North Energy LLC, otherwise known as True North. True North has applied for zoning relief in conjunction with the redevelopment of the property, including a special use permit, zoning variations, sign variations, and approval of exterior appearance plans for the project. At its regular meeting on March 13, 2017, the village board approved the special use permit and sign variations. And on April 24, 2017, the village board approved zoning variations and exterior appearance approval. Most recently, True North has accepted all conditions to the use of the property contained in both Ordinance 6486, approved on March 13th, and Ordinance 6498, approved on April 24th. With the direction from the village board tonight, staff is prepared to finalize this sale, establish a closing date, and formalize the sale and transfer the property to True North. And again, as Attorney Matthews mentioned, the two additional conditions that are included in this ordinance is finalize all conditions, including a restriction on the hours of operation, which would stipulate that the business can be open from 5 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday. It also stipulates that an access easement agreement or an access easement be established for additional landscaping for a period of 5 years. And I did want to mention that in the ordinance itself, on page 2, we want to make sure we include the Monday through Sunday 12 to 5 a.m. specifically, so that we're clear on what those hours of operation are going to be. So that'd be one amendment I'd make to the proposed ordinance. So approving this ordinance will authorize the village to proceed with scheduling the closing at the earliest time convenient for both parties. At this time, staff recommends approving the ordinance and directing staff to schedule a closing to finalize the sale of 825 North Main to True North Energy LLC. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
So why don't we open the public hearing, then we can get into any formal questions and the public aspect of this.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing to consider the ordinance finalizing the sale of property at 825 North Main Street and authorizing staff to proceed and set a closing date.
Second.
Second, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Senek.
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea.
Yes.
Trustee McGinley.
Aye.
Trustee Ladisek.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
All right, if Attorney Matthews can give a presentation defining this, the aspects of this public hearing, please.
Well, we're conducting a public
Hey, Greg,
hearing. Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
move your microphone up a little bit.
We'll be conducting a public hearing that is probably a little bit different than what you experienced at the Planning Commission. We'll have all individuals who wish to stand up and testify or ask questions will be sworn in. That will be including staff members who maybe ask questions, but it won't be in the sense of a cross-examination like the zoning rules under the state can require or can be applied. But we're here to listen to what you have to say, answer your questions, if we can. I will caution at this point, I received a call today from an attorney purporting to represent those of the folks who might be here who are in opposition to this project going ahead, who advised me that he will be filing a complaint against the Village of Glen Ellen within the next 2 to 3 days. And there might be times during the in terms of statements that you have to make, that's fine. But if if you intend to ask questions that I find might compromise the interest of the village in this lawsuit that I've been told will be filed, I have no idea what it will say, but I will be preventing responses to some of the questions if they cross the line and suggest some sort of issue that I need to protect on behalf of the village that we all live in. So just with that caveat, I just wanted to let you know, but we're still here to listen to what you have to say and try to answer questions as best we can.
So we'll start,
I think what we want to do is ask anyone who's planning to speak, right, to maybe stand up and we'll swear you in.
You can do it all at one time.
whoever signed up to speak, please.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Just point of clarification, if anybody else wants to speak later, under the same circumstances, they just have to get sworn in, right?
As long as the public hearing's still open.
Right, right, okay.
So why don't we start?
Sure. First up is Diana Martinez, and on deck is Mark Southard. And for Ms. Martinez, Dan Porter and also Jessica Valerio have ceded their time.
First, I want to say I have a letter from a couple of people who could not be here that I would like to give. Karen Campbell couldn't be here tonight, and Brett Waitland couldn't be here tonight, and Ray Campbell could not be here tonight. So can I just give these to you for the record? Can I ask him a question about how many stations? You have 300 stations. Do you know about how many of them are 6 to 8 pumps? No idea?
300, I don't know the percentage.
Half? More than half?
Probably somewhere around
Okay.
However, within the states that in the Chicagoland area, currently what we're building is not.
Is not.
Is more than that.
Got it.
So Ohio, my point is Ohio's a lot different than Chicago. There's a lot greater density of people here, a lot greater, higher traffic flow.
You mentioned in a couple hearings ago a 15,000 tank of gas in the ground, the storage tanks, and a 20,000 tank. Is that correct?
Well, I didn't, but.
No, you did. I watched the tape.
Mark
But I'm just asking, was it 15 and 20?
You stated that I stated, and I'm telling you I didn't state that.
Okay.
However, the president of our company, Mark Wyden, stated it. Actually, you interrupted, so you didn't hear that.
So how many thousands of gallons would be in the ground?
We'll have I believe it was 15,000 gallons.
And Mr. Lyden stated that it's 4 to 5 times a week at the last hearing that they get.
I don't recall that Mr. Lyden stated that. I do remember that being wrong.
Is that about right?
Yeah, probably.
4 to 5 times a week? So, question for Trustee Senek. At the 13th hearing, you asked, will there be more than 3,600 gallons or 3,600,000 gallons? Why, can I ask why you're shooting toward that number?
Because the US EPA and the California EPA use that number as a line of demarcation for purposes of determining the proximity of stations relative to schools or residences.
So if you take 30,000, can you do this math? Does somebody have a calculator? 30,000 times 4 times a week times 52 weeks, what are we at?
52 weeks,
Yeah.
120K,
Huh?
1.5 million.
So 30,000 times 5
15 million?
times 52.
Check my number.
Does the majority of income, from what I've read, come from the grocery store and the convenience store?
It's roughly, in the industry, it's close to half.
Oh, half.
But however, realize the math you just went through, we don't completely fill up it. There's not 30,000 gallons worth of delivered
Per time.
times a week.
Okay.
Fraction.
I just didn't understand why he was shooting toward that number. Did you explore any other configurations? And I'm going to ask you because of this.
6,240,000.
What?
Madam Secretary, 6,240,000.
Thank you. And I'm sure you're like, please don't even bring this up now, but I went through your website and went and looked at different configurations. And here's an 8-pump in Aurora. Here's an 8-pump in Lyle. Is there a way to make this go up or down? And some of these just seem so much more compact, you know, not so like spread out from end to end. Woodridge, this is an awesome design actually, 8 pumps. I mean, it's really awesome. If you'd imagine that was the neighbors, it would keep all the lights very centralized. I think that's a beautiful design as gas stations go. Here's a 10 pump. There's one 10 pump I came across. I was just looking for ones in our area. Elmhurst, 8 pumps on Butterfield Road. Willowbrook, 8 pumps on Kingery Road, which is a major highway. And this is a better picture of that 8 pump. You can see how much more compact it keeps it so the canopy doesn't hit all the neighborhood. Romeoville, 8 pumps. Woodridge and Lamont, 6 pumps. It's that other kind of cool way that you do it. And I get that that's not probably historic, right? That style. Downers Grove, 8 pumps. Willowbrook. Elmhurst on Butterfield Road is 8 pumps. Elgin, 8 pumps. Elmhurst on York Street is 8 pumps. And honest to God, I wasn't just looking for 8 pumps. I just kind of went, what's in our area? Mount Prospect, 6 pumps on Bussey Highway, which is a big highway. LaGrange, 8 pumps, highly commercial area. It just feels like 8 pumps is in bigger areas than our backyard. And I'm like, it's not unreasonable. And I'm gonna be honest with you, we've never been that bold to say, can you please cut 2 pumps? But we've said, can we reduce, can we reduce, can we reduce? And when I looked at all these, I'm like, well, heck, that's more your model than a 12 pump. And it feels like it would fit better, a lot better. And it would solve a lot of problems with the lights and the imposition and ruining the land and cutting trees down. And I wish you would consider it. And I know it's a huge, huge ask at the very wrong time, but this decision is for perpetuity. It's not for just today. And everybody in this room is gonna go away. And then the chainsaws are gonna go, and we're gonna be stuck with it. And the cement's gonna pour, and we're gonna be stuck with it. And I know Trustee O'Shea said, hey, I'll be there if it's still leaking in your yard. But you're gone. No, you said I'll fight. I'll be back to the village and fight for you
I would
guys.
make sure the water situation gets solved.
But you said you would, but it's hard,
don't.
right? It's hard. I'm not trying to make you look bad, I'm trying to make you look good. You said, but it's hard. What can you do? What can anybody do?
We can hold
We're
the
gonna
village
be
accountable is
left.
what we can do.
Huh?
We're gonna hold the village accountable is what we're gonna do.
It's just, but it's just hard, you know? And I object to the sale of True North by the village. I believe the contingency period has expired. I object to a handshake deal extending the contract. I object based on the fact that at the March 13th board meeting, Trustee Senek noted there is no economic study, no impact plan done for this project, no light or sound study, no objective third traffic party study. I object based on the fact the environmental impact study wasn't engaged by our own environmental commission. If the village employees don't know if a 12-pump gas station is an environmental hazard as questioned, then I suggest we engage our environmental commission to figure out if it is. I'm curious to know why Trustee Senek was about the 3.6 million. He said it, thank you. I object to the traffic study. I think it's incomplete and inaccurate. It was done on a winter day on Tuesday, January 6th with wind gusts and snow and doesn't accurately reflect a typical day of pedestrian traffic. The traffic study states there is no fatal accidents on record in the last 5 years. We all know there was a fatal accident at that corner in 2013. Father George, who lives around the corner, told me about how his car got spun and turned upside down a couple years ago. I think I object most because this is just extraordinarily large. And I guess my time is up.
There's 3 more minutes.
What?
You're giving 3 more minutes.
I got 3 minutes or no?
Sure.
I want to talk about the contention between the board.
Do we, just hang on one second, is someone else going to?
I just need-
We're gonna
I need a
follow-
minute.
We're gonna follow the rules here, but if somebody wants to, I'd like everybody to give their time ahead of time, but if somebody wants to give their time now to Diana, she can continue, otherwise we have to follow the rules because it's been the basis of proposed litigation, so I'm gonna follow the rules exactly tonight here, so, is someone gonna take their name off the list, willing to give up their time?
It's okay. If you guys got it, you want to speak, you speak. Okay. Who's am I getting so they can write it down?
We have Dan, I ceded my time to Mark Simon.
Okay. I want to just talk about
We have Dan.
the board contention with this group.
Put it at 2 3 minutes.
A lot of you might not know, but I know Alex Demos from a really long time ago. Like when I first started directing and I wanted to do the musical Grease, and I needed a Grease Lightning. And I had this fabulous dream of taking an old jalopy and gutting it and taking a real car and making it happen. Everybody said it's too expensive, it's too heavy, it's too much, but Alex said, I'll do it. And he did it, and it was awesome. And it was a musical theater show here in the area. Alex helped hang the kitchen cabinets in my house. We have respected each other through this whole process. We don't always agree, but we've always been able to talk. And we've always respected each other. With Jessica, went out after a board meeting with Trustee Senek to try to explain to him how Facebook works for a long time. Trustee Kenwood.
Because I was getting worried.
That was me.
Trustee Kenwood came
People-
out to
people often confuse us.
our family-friendly protest where there were priests protesting and families and dogs and kids. And I invited all of you because I didn't want you to feel like you weren't included or invited or not welcome. I wanted you to come and see. I wanted you to see that we would clean it up, that it would be a family-friendly thing, and come and let's try to get some mutual understanding. Let's not spin this. Let's not take the Kellyanne Conway path of like being the victim. It doesn't work. We're just trying to get some understanding here. And I'm sorry if people get emotional. He ejected himself at the last meeting. Yes, there's been emotion, but there's also been a lot of passion here, a lot of respect, and a lot of really good conversations. I know people have gone out with Trustee O'Shea to talk to him. I know people have gone out with Mark Senek to talk to him. I know I've gone out with some of you. I've talked to Stacy and John several times. They have been wonderful. It doesn't mean we don't agree. It doesn't mean we don't think the process has been great. But we all have to live in this town. And if you move in, we're going to have to get along too, somehow, you know? And we got to figure this out. We really have to figure this out. And And I am begging you to think about reducing the canopy. I think that would be a really big step if we could have a bigger buffer and smaller impact. Thank you.
Once again, I'm Mark Southard. I live at 550 St. Charles Road. I became interested in the two rules, the variance that was given by this board and the sightline rules that were worked out by the county DOT. And I found what appears to me to be an anomaly. The figures I'm going to use tonight are based either on my own direct measurement or the documents that were part of the packet from the meeting of the 24th into the 25th. And this is concerning the left turning lane from St. Charles into the facility. That paragraph labeled C in the packet that was given out last meeting says briefly that there must be a distance from the driveway to the east to the access lane into the property must total 160 feet. The distance from the driveway to the property line, as I measured it, is 28 feet, and it's a somewhat vague thing to measure. But there's utility equipment there. There's a hedge. It's a fairly clear border line. I could be off by a few feet, but I'm not off by a great deal. So you get you have 28 feet on the adjoining property. Then you need, in order to get to 160 feet, you need 132 feet of frontage on Roosevelt Road, the frontage from this site. The DuPage DOT, based on their sightline study, are saying they want a minimum of 190 feet between the left turning lane and the center of Main Street. And I measured Main Street. It's roughly 40 feet across. Based on numbers both from True North and from the DOT, they calculate either 170 or 175 feet of frontage from, let's say, the sidewalk on the east side of Main Street, continuing on east on the front along the frontage on St. Charles Road. So if you combine those two, you've got 132 feet of frontage to get from that driveway to the east. You've got 170 or 75 feet in order to get from Main Street back east to give the DOT its sightline distance. If you add those two, it's 302 feet. The total width of the property is 284 feet. So I said there was an anomaly where there's a gap of 18, there's an 18-foot overlap as I measure it there. There is simply no space for an access point to go there and comply both with the village and with the DuPage DOT.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question? That variation was not our variation, the left turn in. That's the page.
Stacy?
Right, we didn't approve a variation for a left turn in, as I recall.
On St. Charles.
St. Charles.
You can
That's
step
a
down.
DuPage Department of Transportation issue, that's not a village issue.
He's talking about the distance between, I believe, between access points that we did grant a variation for. But the left in off of St. Charles Road
But
is something that's permitted by.
Did we grant that variation based upon the DuPage Department of Transportation's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But that, and just to clarify, that's not the traffic study, that is DuPage doing their study, right? That's
So the
different
traffic
than-
study was prepared by True North's consultant and reviewed by the village's consultant and also reviewed by DuPage County staff and was acceptable to everyone.
But these measurements here.
If I may add, it was based on the sight lines and the stopping distance and that kind of thing. That's where that 190 feet came from.
Right, but that comes from DuPage reviewing that, right?
I didn't quite follow the
Well,
comment.
it sounds like what he's claiming is that there's a,
There's a distance measurement anomaly. Our engineers, the consultant's engineers, and DuPage County's engineers don't believe that, they seem to think the numbers match, so I'm not sure what.
And all I'm trying to clarify is, all those people agree that was not the traffic consultant.
Correct.
That's what, this was not part of the traffic study.
No, that's regulatory staff.
Next, personnel.
Peter Clifford is next, and on deck is Mark Simon.
I'll try to go quick. I gotta go grab my kids here in a second. But I'm here tonight because I feel accountable to the people on this side of the dais for the mistakes that I made when presenting the financial analysis last week. I thank the board, particularly you, Mr. O'Shea, for the constructive criticism, and apologize that I wasn't up to speed on how the taxes work around here exactly, so shame on me. I do stand by my criticism that $140,000 projected tax revenue is unattainable, and my opinion that the village was derelict in its duty to residents by not conducting any financial analysis of the opportunity. I admit the board is correct with respect to the tax receipts that I projected declining. Those won't actually decline, but the deficits that I projected, they won't result in reduced services or additional strain on the budget. But what will actually happen is that we, the residents, will absorb these deficits. We'll pay the same dollar amount in taxes, allowing the village to meet their budget, while the value of our homes plummets. In essence, we're getting a huge tax increase to subsidize this development for True North. Using a $500,000 property as an example here. Sorry, my printer ran out of ink. I'll walk you through, but for this $500,000 house, you'll pay about $14,000 in taxes annually today. Once this gas station is built, your home value, thank you very much, Stacy, and your home value goes down, in many cases significantly, especially for a lot of the people in this room, myself included. Using the feedback that we received from multiple real estate professionals that are familiar with the area, it's reasonable to assume about a 20% decline in the market value of a home in the area. At that level, the homeowner in this example will see their effective tax rate rise by about 25%. That's a jump from just about 8% to a little more than 10%. You can see this highlighted yellow is that target sample there. But on the bright side, this does only impact the people who live in the hot zone like us, since our homes will be the ones that bear the brunt of that decline. So the people most impacted by this effective tax hike are the same people that are affected by the health issues, the safety issues, the environmental issues, all the concerns raised by the residents throughout this process. I get that we need economic development, and I support economic development, but my only question is to what end? I mean, where do we draw the line here? If we abandon everything that makes Glen Ellen unique and special and a place that we all want to be, then what's the point of being in Glen Ellen? It's going to just change the whole community for the worse, in my opinion. Thanks.
Can I ask for this clarification, Mark? Maybe you can help me here, but because we brought this up twice now, and I think it's important, so we all understand. If a market value, if an EAV of a home goes down, is it possible for their tax to go up?
If the EV, you have to look at the EV.
If everything else stays equal.
Over the
If everything else
entire
stays equal.
district, because it's an inverse proportion.
Right, but if everything else stays equal, the same levies from every taxing body stays equal, and a home's value goes down, their tax rate will do, their tax dollars spent will go where?
Down.
Okay. So I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I appreciate it.
I'd
I'm
love
not
to
a
talk
tax
to you.
guy.
I'd
I'm
love
just
I'd love
trying
to
to-
talk to you about it, call me,
Sure.
email me, but I don't get the argument, and I'm happy to, maybe you're right and I'm wrong, happy to talk about it. That's my understanding.
No, I appreciate that. I did speak with a couple.
Might be the effective tax rate that you're, the
I'm talking
percentage
about the effective tax
That
rate.
might be somehow playing into it, I don't have the mind right now.
My understanding is that the dollar value that is collected in taxes from the property will stay the same regardless of the
No,
underlying.
the dollar value of the entire district, so the 87 district, the village district, the overall EAV is calculated, so now yours will be less, other people's might be more. Then the tax rate will adjust because it's an inverse proportion.
I
So
want to make sure
EAV
you're saying, I'm not saying it's a good
accelerates,
thing
rate
for you,
goes
don't
down.
get me wrong, okay? I
That's
just want to
fine.
make sure that we have the facts.
Well, if you don't mind, can I
Call me.
continue the
You
conversation?
have-
I need to
yes.
run tonight, but I'll send you
I
an
sent
email
to
tomorrow.
your wife today, you can respond.
No, I saw that and I appreciate your response to that too. So.
Hey, Peter, one thing, because I sent you an email on your analysis too. And the thing I did give you, I explained to you the tax issue is collecting the money, but there's a little bit of cannibalization
Right.
around the tax collected. So that's what I took, when I sent you my response to
Okay.
that, I took your spreadsheet and I showed you some of that. So
Okay.
I hope you got it.
I don't recall that follow-up, but I'll look through my emails. And thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is Mark Simon, and Rick Massa has deferred his time to Mark.
All right, I'm ready. Mark Simon, 604 Elm. I am still very concerned about having a top producer of real estate sales in Glen Ellen come in and tell our village board that she could easily see reductions in our home values by 25% and a reduction in saleability or time on market. That bothers me so much. I am positive that if the roles were reversed, and you were being told that your investment could potentially go down 25% or be compromised from a saleability, I promise you'd be standing right here. My leg is shaking, as it always is, but I promise you, you would be standing here begging for consideration. It's not fair. You are, for all of us, it is such a compromise of our financial well-being. It disturbs me, aside from all of the safety issues. So I wanted to at least bring that up again. Chairman Burkett at the ARC had said that $750 is not enough to screen our properties, and I don't even know how the $750 is defined or how it's specified. I don't know if it's a check. He said it wasn't enough money, so I don't think that the head of ARC saying that $750 is not enough I don't think we should proceed with that. I think we should talk about it. I think 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. seems more normal. I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, like most people do, unless I'm into a movie or something. I don't want lights shining through my house into my bedroom and my living room. I don't think it's fair for residences to see any part of the canopy. That's why I agree with Diana that the canopy should be brought in to maybe match the length of the station itself. That way, those of us certainly on the sides would not see this bright canopy. And again, there was a lot happening last week. It was pretty amazing. But I don't. This is from Speedway. Why should anybody have to see this from their homes or any piece of a canopy like that? That's again, that's the Speedway on North Avenue on the south side. I think it's touching Lombard. This is from the residence that sits directly 10 feet below. It's analogous to the grade differential on this parcel versus the properties next to it. Another question I had is, why is this station going to work when other stations haven't worked? I don't understand financially why it's sound. I don't know what's going to happen to 7-Eleven when the store owner says he thinks his business is going to shutter. So I also wanted to know, will gas prices be comparable? We had a senior citizen speak last week who has no issue. He doesn't want this station, and he just goes for the cheapest gas. We had talked about, Mr. O'Shea, you had talked about we could have built a big office building with lots of parking spaces. I think you had said as an alternative to this. I think
Stated that there were 3 proposals that were made by PP&K Architect in 2011 that displayed 3 properties, one which was a 2-story building with 81 parking spaces.
we'd rather have that.
But
Ask-
parking right up to your lot lines.
Well, you'd still have to
It's not-
provide. I
unfortunately,
think
that's not on the table.
I
When
understand.
someone came,
I understand.
They could have
but
built that,
I
because that was
understand.
for sale. We gave that to a lot of prospective brokers, and no one bid on it.
Understood. But we'd rather have it. I wanted to just, in the remaining time, I wanted to just show a couple photos that I didn't get to show you all last time. One, I am concerned if we end up with a marquee, you know, the sign on the corner with the price of the gas or some bushes, something that's pretty. I am nervous that parents and kids crossing could potentially be blocked, and cars coming around the corner quickly wouldn't see that because of that corner fixture. So that's just one thing I wanted to share with you. Again, I've pointed this out before. I am very concerned because I've walked this with my kids for years. I don't know how a parent and children are really safe walking on this sidewalk and having cars turning in and out. I don't, I think that we could have a major...
Those are my kids, by the way.
Right, Scott. Yes. Yes. So that's an accurate picture. This is the backup going into Forest Glen on Main. This is what's going eastbound. You could not. I don't see how anybody could even turn left out of the station onto Main Street with these backups. How would that happen? Sorry, let me fast forward. Sorry, just a moment. What's my time, please?
42 seconds.
Okay. Again, I don't think we'll go to the DuPage Traffic Authority and we'll talk about how this is safe to cross left from St. Charles into the station. It doesn't seem safe to me. Okay, sorry. And another picture. You can see on our protest day, you know, as I looked at this, I thought, wow, what a shame that we don't have, well, this is the backup. How would you cross that going left? How would you cross three rows of traffic out of the gas station going left on Main? It's not possible. I think that this would be a beautiful park. Look at that. That's our protest. It looks pretty happy to me. And then finally, this was, I'm done. This is yes, last photo. This is from this morning. I actually jumped out of my car to try to capture this shot. You can see traffic is stuck in the intersection trying to go from St. Charles onto Main Street going south, and it's backed up. I mean, I'm going to show this tomorrow, but this is what we're dealing with. Thank you all.
Next speaker is Bob Imig. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. And next up is Mary Beth Nelms.
President Demos, if I could I defer my remarks until the last person who's speaking in favor of the gas station is spoken?
We're going to call you up in the order that we put it there, but I appreciate your comments. I like to follow a specific order. I don't generally allow people to pick the time or order that they're going to speak in. So if you're called now, this is your opportunity to speak. I understand you're making a point, and it's a very good point, but if you'd like to have your 3 minutes, now is the time to take it.
Well, I think somebody else is first. I'm not next, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you were the one.
No, I was probably the second.
Mr. Image?
Yeah.
Bob Image, you're next.
Now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So.
And one other point, if I saw a few people who did sign up late. If you haven't been sworn in, we're going to need to ask you to inform the clerk when you come up to speak, because it's important for your testimony part of the record that you're sworn in. I think you did stand with the group and you were sworn in, so go ahead.
815 Lennox Road. Okay, so this is a mistake. Don't do it. Okay, you got information. You got information that as a point source of benzene, this station is a future health problem for school people and for nearby residents. We paid money to eliminate that as a point source. There's no reason for us to reintroduce it. So consider this. Let's build a cow manure processing plant. Let's build it on the corner. Let's build it on your corner, okay? Residential area, no problem. Special use, we can fix that. All right? Now it's going to be built according to all the environmental codes, but let me tell you, you and your kids are still going to have an elevated risk of COPD, and you could get sick. All right? But that's okay. I don't live in that part of town, so I'm not going to get sick. And remember,
the taxes that are going to be raised from this commercial property are going to benefit everybody. So we should do it, because we have to do what's good for all of the people of Glen Ellen, right? We all eat hamburgers and drink milk. So, I mean, we shouldn't, exempt ourselves from, being near a cow manure processing plant. And, well, other people have those plants, so we should have them too. Now, if you just substitute gas station for cow manure processing plant, you could have a profile of a person who's in favor of this gas station. It's not gonna be built in my neighborhood. I'm not the one that's gonna get sick, but I'm gonna get the benefit of the taxes. And that's not representing all of the people in Glen Ellen when you look at a project, all right? Safety trumps the few tax dollars that you're gonna get from this project.
Mary Beth Nelms is next. And on deck is Scott Brown.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak again. As usual, with these talks, I had an agenda of my own planned, but after listening to some things this evening, it's changed. And first and foremost, it appears that Ryan Howard will be a new neighbor in the neighborhood. Not by my agreement, but being new to the neighborhood, I believe we all might need to figure out a few things that would make us be good neighbors. I'm not in favor of this traffic study that was done, I believe January 26th. Of course, there were no children walking to school, and Forest Glen and the Montessori schools are not the only schools that we need to be concerned about. There are Glenbard West students. There are Hadley students. There is a skate park on the corner, and the weather's going to be getting nicer. There was just a lovely accident this morning at Five Corners. 2 cars. They couldn't figure out which lane they wanted to go into because the lanes aren't striped properly. So they hit each other. That's just my assumption. I was a couple cars back when I saw it happen. But there was a little girl on the corner with her backpack and her guitar waiting to cross. And I was shuddering. Now, I did spend 10 years in that corner crossing kids, and they are my one main concern. I noticed a new Green Power Partnership sign on the corner, and I was really proud to see that. But I don't think that sign belongs there with the gas station across the street. I think we should take that sign down, and I think we should really reevaluate the school crossing signage at that intersection. I believe we need school crossing signs, whether they're intrusive to anybody or the sister city in France needs to come down or something. But people need to see that there is a school right there, the Montessori school. One of those flashing signs would be appropriate. I would really like to see the Village of Glen Ellen put up a no left turn into the gas station sign like they have at Park in Lambert. You can't turn left on Lambert going towards College of DuPage into the gas station. Why can't they put a sign up at Five Corners keeping people from turning left into this gas station? I know Mr. Howard wants to be a part of our neighborhood, and you've seen how passionate our neighbors are against what the village board, the village people want for the town. They're happy with making us sacrifice at the north end of town because the people maybe on the south end of town want a gas station. I don't believe they'd want it in their backyard. Thank you for listening to me, and I would really like to see that we can all just agree to disagree and maybe not have this gas station at all. Thank you.
Scott Brown. On deck is Jessica Como.
Scott Brown, 1N161 Forest Avenue. I'm here actually tonight to speak on behalf of Mr. Brett Wallen, who could not be here tonight, so these were his words. He actually sent a letter, but it's very powerful, and I wanted everyone in this room to hear it collectively. I wanted to write in order to show that my absence at today's board meeting was in no way should indicate an acquiescence nor agreement with our direction with the village with respect to the gas station. Unfortunately, I must be out of town for business. It is my hope, however, that the concerns of the people that are present are heard and afforded the respect they deserve. I continue to believe the root of this issue can be found in the disconnected priorities of the board from the village as a whole. Putting properties back on the tax rolls or maximizing tax revenue should be secondary to the health, safety, and overall protection of this community. I fear we are setting a dangerous precedent in the long term by prioritizing tax revenue above all else. It shouldn't take much imagination to envision the detrimental outcome of a scenario in which tax revenue is held to be the most important in a long run of individual actions. I reiterate my concern about the scientific research that shows an increased risk of cancer for people that live within 300 feet of a gas station, as well as expert testimony of Joe Abel as it relates to the appropriate transition of land use from residential to commercial. In no way is a gas station appropriately located directly adjacent to residential property. As it's become plainly obvious that financial concerns are your collective priority, I'd expect the closure of the gas station should be followed through in that regard. Financial concerns and protection should be prioritized. This means that the taxpayers should be protected. There should be a condition in the final agreement that protects the taxpayers from having to invest in their property again should it fail. This protection should be in the form of a bond which True North commits appropriate dollar amount to demolish and remediate the site in the event the site is abandoned. Further, there should be a condition that restricts the use of the property in future sale transactions to exclude and prohibit use as a gas station. Finally, as it relates to conduct, I explicitly say that I am disappointed in the comments from trustees that were directed at the general public last week. As elected officials, you must hold yourselves to a higher standard when engaging in arguments. Set an example by dissecting issues to their fundamental elements. Saying that the public has conducted themselves in an unscrupulous manner and describing them as intimidating serves to showcase a disconnect between you and the rest of us. You must remember that people are the village. The board is not the village, but it has become increasingly difficult to discern that if you share that sentiment. I promise I hold you accountable through public comment and community debate, and if you further berate your constituents and act in a manner that indicates the village is something other than the people. I realize I'm out of time, so I think that sums it up. Thank you.
Can you repeat the name of the person?
Brett Wall. 815 West.
Jesse Como. I'm just going to read a letter from Megan Clifford that she sent, and she couldn't be here tonight, and I said I would. She wrote this to Alex Demos Sunday, April 30th. Alex, I received the email correspondence below in response to a FOIA request. It is clear that the Glen Ellen Environmental Chairman emailed you on March 8th and again on March 22nd to seek your interest in the Commission's review of the proposed 825 North Main Street project. It's also clear that they were ready and willing to serve our village. Can you explain why the Environmental Commission was not engaged by you as the president of our village to review the proposed 825 North Main Street project? There was no email response from you in the FOIA. I would think that you would want to have all the information offered by your commissions before making a weighty decision. Thank you, Megan Clifford. She's just referring to a letter from the Environmental Commission asking and stating that they are ready to serve and we owe it to our village and our residents. And then just following up from Megan, so I don't know if you guys can answer that, why we didn't do any environmental studies. And I also think that with the school being so close, that we do owe it to the school and to the families there to be able to say to them why we didn't do it. I even went out and measured my own house because I'm so nervous about it. And we have people on our street talking about already moving because they don't want their families growing up so close to the gas station. So if the environmental study came out, maybe that could help ease some of that worry. Thanks.
All right, next up is Christy Bockelman, and Christina Lindahl has ceded her time to Ms. Bockelman.
Thank you. My name is Christy Bockelman. I live at 765 Prairie between Oak and Elm. I promise I won't take up all 6 minutes, but close to it. So we are here because the village board unanimously approved buying a vacant property in the Five Corners area as part of a plan to beautify and redevelop Glen Ellen's northern gateway. Now, according to what I read in the agenda packet for this evening's meeting, the village of Glen Ellen is required as a certified local government to maintain an active survey program to show evidence of preservation activities within the community. In fact, there's so much focus on historic preservation in this town that that's what led my family to choose to purchase a home here almost 12 years ago. Great schools, rich history, and lots of preserved land. In fact, in January of this year, USA Today agreed with me and picked Glen Ellen in its selection for most picturesque towns in Illinois. Your actions at this site are regressive, and we've been told they will literally drive new residents away instead of drawing them in. You are, in fact, willingly inflicting significant financial harm on this neighborhood. This project does not conform to our village plan. The benefits are minimal, and there is nothing inherently beautiful about a 50,000 some odd square feet paved lot. My biggest concern is that it will take this one short-sighted misstep to forever alter the reputation of our town and the quality of life for those of us that live in this northern quadrant of our community. How could this possibly be considered a contribution? Proper testing and safety evaluations have not been made to allow for the final sale of this property. In 2014, in regards to Ackerman's 44,000 square foot parking lot, why was stormwater quality and excessive runoff into the storm sewers made a concern? And we were even granted money from the government to repair that. Why is that not at all a concern for this project? It's 44,000 square foot parking lot that we were concerned with replacing with permeable material. And this lot that's over 10,000 square feet larger we're not concerned about. I do not understand that. Trustee Kenwood even mentioned this evening in reference to the new home at Park and Oak that not paving a big parking area has an environmental benefit. That's in stark contrast to the handling of this gas station site. In my opinion, this project needs to slow down, and the rush to push it through is what making the residents suspicious of your motives. We have questions that deserve answers. What are the short and long-term health risks? We know that benzene is a carcinogen. If there are no risks, please show us proof that we are in no harm. Show us that you care and are concerned for our well-being. Has anyone studied the weather, altitude, and wind patterns? What is to be expected of the well water that residents drink? What's the acceptable level of ground contamination? And have the perimeter yards been tested in the past? Will they be tested for safety in the future? These are legitimate concerns, and they should be addressed prior to final sale of this property. Do you realize that many of KLOA's statements in their traffic study are inaccurate? Don't you think that a new traffic study, including Main and Elm, and a new property valuation study should be done, since the property value should have increased in 4 years? Are you really approving a project based on incorrect documentation from years ago? My daughter just informed me this evening, she's 16, that they've been taught that research sources are not accurate if they are over 3 years old. There was a fatality at this corner in 2014 which was not reported. And most recently, this intersection had 2 traffic accidents last Thursday, April 27th, and both involved ambulances taking injured motorists to the hospital, just this past Thursday. There was a lot of police activity at Five Corners on Saturday, April 29th at 10 p.m. that halted traffic. I don't know what happened there yet, but I couldn't get through. There was a big mess there. And there was yet another traffic accident that Mary Beth mentioned this morning on that corner just this morning. 3 serious traffic accidents in 5 days, and you are not concerned with increasing traffic flow by 40%? We are petrified. Please do not vote yes to finalize this sale until the safety of your residents can be assured. Lastly, in reference to the liquor sales, we'd like you to follow Naperville's lead and also deny True North a liquor license. Liquor sales should never be permitted at stations that abut single-family or multi-residential homes, and I would like to see this board vote unanimously against issuing this license. Please show us that you're listening. In closing, I'd like to say that we are not opposed to selective, responsible development at this site, but that harming your residents out of spite, indifference, or to make a point about toughness doesn't move the village, its families, or our children forward. Please vote no on both items and allow the incoming board to continue these discussions in the interest of our collective health, safety, and welfare. Thank you for listening.
Ken Kloss is next. On deck is Mike Semprovino.
My initial anticipation was when I heard that the owner's wife was part of a historical group. Was how cool is that? Nothing that I've seen suggests her involvement in this project. Perhaps she can be contacted and put her last words in for 8 pumps rather than 12. That would be commendable. Years ago, a general contractor who had financial problems teamed up with another builder to build townhomes along Duane Street. The village wisely developed a backup plan in the event that the contractors were unsuccessful. But what happened is, I guess maybe Trustee Ledesek remembers that, but the 2 contractors got nervous and they backed out of the project. I see the same potential here now with True North's stock worth 0.00677 cents per share. This tells me there are not many investors whom have confidence in True North. A financial analysis should be carried out. The village may have to assume running the gas station or finishing the project. I don't think this is a far-fetched statement coming from Ken Kloss. I can see the headline coming very shortly. Village of Glen Ellen stands by the True North despite their violations of state of Illinois regulations. I would wonder who is going to make the improvements on the street, especially Main Street, where 2 left turn lanes will be essentially in the same place. It certainly should include a significant concrete island so that can occur. At the last time I had wanted the names of the people that are giving us this information. I have yet to receive that. The traffic study related to school children at Elm and Main should be completed. Ignoring Elm and Main is a major oversight. And I would ask, why such a large convenience store? And I would suggest that the village obtained from True North who the identity of the proposed tenant or tenants will be. And I certainly support the confusion of these left turns, especially when you have other areas in town where you can't, a residential street, you can't make a left turn. The school has 4 distinct time frames where you can't make a left turn. This is, again, I ask for the people that are saying that these traffic studies are accurate. And I would enjoy being invited to your Sellers Remorse party. When will it be held and where will it be held? Oh, same response you always get. Okay, thank you.
Julia Nephew, you're on deck.
Oh, were you sworn in earlier?
I was not, sir. I will do that now.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Michael Sempervivo. I live at 22W488 Emerson Avenue in Glen Ellen. You know that when
Al, set the clock, please.
when I left here at 2 a.m. last week, the lights at Walgreens were still on in the parking lot. And I bring this up because I appreciate Manager Franz addressing my issues, but nothing's been done about them quite yet. And it's important to talk about Walgreens because I don't know if we can trust the city to hold True North accountable. If we can't get Walgreens to turn their darn lights off at 2 in the morning, then when the canopy lights don't get turned down all the way, what are we going to do? When they don't cut the grass, what are we going to do? You know, I don't really know if there's enough accountability here. So I wanted to point that out really quick. Sir, just because you bought a big lot, don't be like other people in town and fill it up with structure and leave no yard for their kids to play. Make a smaller gas station. You don't need to have that much space. And you know, one thing that wasn't talked about, is there a way, since there's a grade change in the property, I assume we're going to use a lot of concrete to build that grade up as it goes eastbound on St. Charles. Why can't we take some bulldozers and dig some of that earth out and actually sink the gas station into the ground? Put a wrought iron fence around the perimeter of the sidewalk, maybe make it 5 or 6 feet shallower than what it is now so it stays on grade with the east end of the property. And then we won't have an issue with trying to turn left onto St. Charles Road without seeing above the top of the hill so we don't get killed trying to pull into your gas station. And on top of that, we would probably reduce a lot of the light levels to our neighbors at Elm Street because it'll be sunken down significantly. I'm no engineer, but I think moving dirt doesn't seem like it's entirely impossible. Sir, I'm sorry that you were intimidated by us and that quote made the paper. I'm also ashamed, or not ashamed, I'm actually really frustrated to hear that these are things that our kids shouldn't be seeing.
Are you speaking with me?
I am, sir.
To me?
I am.
I never said I was intimidated by anyone. I said...
The
that
level
our-
of intimidation, you said.
Right, and
Yes.
not to me, but to residents, and some of it I saw here, and I'll address it
Okay.
when I make my comment to see.
Sure, fair enough. Well, I think it's important that our kids saw us peacefully protest, come here, speak our minds, and I think it's going to be good for our children moving forward to see their parents acting in that manner. Once again, I want to, I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but sir, I want to know if there's a contingency plan in place here. If this thing goes belly up, who's cleaning up the mess? I asked this last time around. Mr. Kenwood, Mr. Senek said it was a good question in the parking lot afterwards. I'm not sure if it was addressed as a board, if it was addressed to Mr. Howard. What's the contingency plan? I know you're going to spend millions of dollars on this project, okay? So I hope that we're going to have some kind of an escrow account set up or something where the taxpayers aren't paying to clean up the mess. And on the last note, why are we donating $10,000 in landscape material to screen the neighbors? Why can't, they're spending all this money, make them pay for it. That's taxpayer dollars, if I'm not mistaken. You're donating to put more landscaping in. He's spending millions of dollars to build this thing. What's 10,000 more? You got that, right? All right, thanks.
Good evening. I'm Julia Nephew. I happen to be a commissioner of the Glen Ellen Park
You were
District.
sworn in?
I was sworn in earlier. I stood up. I am not here representing the Glen Ellen Park District Board. I want to make that quite clear. They have no opinion in this matter. I'm here as a resident who lives on Prairie Avenue, which is not very far, about 6 blocks from Forest Glen School. I have been, though, for 8 years in your position, sitting as a board in this community and listening to residents. And I've really tried to make a huge effort over the years to make sure that residents have an opportunity to communicate with me. Because as the flow chart shows, there's all the residents of Glen Ellen who elected people like me, and then we create the policies and the mission and the future of our community. And so and it's a very difficult task, we are supposed to take in all of those disparate opinions and come up with what we feel is the best solution, and that's democracy in action. What I've found in these 8 years is that an awfully small percentage of the people ever show up. And you actually have amazing attendance. When I have attended here, I've been really happy to see that. Sometimes we only have the president of our Citizens Finance Committee sitting in the audience along with staff. But I've also been, like you, in rooms where there are upset residents. I don't want to have to name all the different situations. We've also sometimes ended up in court, and I've been over in the courtroom. So I just wanted to say a few things. In 2009, I ran for Park District Board because I and other people felt a really strong disconnect between the representatives of our community and the residents that they were supposed to represent. I've worked super hard to try to change that. At the Park District, we have a transparency award. We have now really wonderful operating surpluses so that we didn't need to go to referendum, all kinds of wonderful things. But unfortunately, I feel that there is still a disconnect between this village board and the residents it represents. That's my personal opinion from, as I said, living here 14 years and being on a board here for 8 years. I'm hoping that this evening you will consider voting to stop this development or postpone the vote until further studies can be looked at. That can be done by
You need to summarize here.
That can be done by an amendment to postpone that just needs a second and then a minimum of vote. And I would like to help stop this growing distrust of this board, because this is not the Glen Ellen I know.
Joe Abel.
Joe, you were sworn in earlier?
Yes. All right, my name is Joe Abel, as you said. I'm going to be very short. I'm not even asking for any additional time. I know you were very busy over the last meetings, and it's so much is going through your heads, your minds. But I think you have to keep in mind that there is a point where you've got to get a little more into detail. And this was my problem with the architecture review. You have a good plan here. It has gotten better. There's no doubt about it. I don't want the station to be there from a professional standpoint, but I'm smart enough to know it is going to be there. So I think if it's going to be there, you have to make this the best there is. This can become almost an award-winning station if it's done properly. It's interesting that on the plan, they have shown a landscaped area, the arborvitae against the single-family homes to the east. I don't understand why the architect fell short and didn't fill this gap. That gap is very important because there are a number of homes that go on an angle on Elm, and then there are other homes that back up. That is a tremendous view through there, and why you can't see that. And I know a lot went on at the last meeting, and I was probably talking about an awful lot of things, but I want to concentrate on just two areas. This is critical, and it can become this if you just add that, and you can do that this evening by just asking the developer to do it as part of the conditions. Something happened here. Can someone adjust this? Oh, John, he's always on the spot. Great, thank you. They should all be put in at one time. This idea of a conservation area and the village going back later and putting in $20,000 worth of landscaping is ridiculous. All the projects that I've been involved in, you don't do half a loaf. Get the whole thing now, and then what will happen over a period of years, you'll wind up with this, which is a beautiful hedge along there, about 15 feet high, and we'll do something. But if you do it on a piecemeal basis, whereby you do a little bit one year and another, you'll never achieve this. It'll just won't happen. You've got the opportunity right now to put in a real nice living hedge in this area. Everything else has been done. Now the other thing real quick, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, but again, it didn't resonate. I do think, and I have to commend Diana for the research she's done. It's unfortunate, in a case like this, where it's so critical in a residential area, this kind of research that she did, showing all these other stations with fewer pumps, should have been done by staff. Anybody that can go back and look at the records for a floor area ratio for a single family home for 7 years should have gotten out and done research like this. This is critical. This island could come out very clearly. I said this at the last meeting. Take it out, make it a landscaped island with 2 nice trees on it, cut the canopy back a little bit and it'll line up, and now you've got something. You have something that at least the neighbors can hang on to and say, hey, the village board did everything they could possibly do. I can't go along with the 8, but at least I think they should be able to cut out 1 island. So I'm saying, I know you goofed up on, we all goofed up on when the special use was granted and enough conditions weren't put in, but you've got the opportunity as part of the sale of this property to add this tonight. You can ask for this additional area of landscaping, cut out 1 island and put in a little more landscaping, and now you'll have a station, at least, although it's in the wrong location, can look a lot better. And I think it's something that True North will be proud of, and the neighbors will be proud of. And you've got the opportunity to do it right now. And so I want to concentrate just on those 2 items. Thank you.
Mr. Abel, before you leave, could I ask you one question?
Sure.
The first drawing you put up
Yeah.
to show the additional planting, it was pretty hard for us to figure out what section of the development that involved. Did your last map?
Southeast corner.
Southeast.
That's the east
Where
side.
was the hedge that you were proposing to add to the?
Oh, this is at the
South of the
southeast
existing, yeah.
section. It's along the property line that starts your residential area going to the east. And it's, you remember I said it's important to have a strong buffer there because I'm concerned that somewhere along the line, someone's gonna say, let's rezone those properties to the east, and then you're gonna have a real problem. Get a good transition between the commercial and the residential to the east, and that's by putting in this strong buffer, which fortunately, they did increase I have to give them credit. They originally only had 4 feet, which wasn't enough. They went to 8. 8 will give you accomplish the drawing that I showed you with that nice hedge.
All right, and I appreciate that. Is it the blank spot? I see one section going north
Right
and
in
south.
here.
Okay.
They put the trees in here.
We've
They
got it.
didn't put
Thank
them
you,
in
sir.
here.
I appreciate it.
Let me show you my drawing. Maybe it's a little clearer.
Right here.
We have it. Thank you.
Got it?
Yep, thank you.
You'll see on mine, I was asking for 15 feet, but I'm happy with 8. I was showing a little more of a staggered design in here. This is what they were showing. There should be a little bit more to the north and then fill that gap to the south. And I think you will have achieved it, but you want to do it all at one time So you put the plant material, it's all the same, starts at the same height, and then you can create that hedge that I show you in the last drawing.
Thank you, sir.
And it can be accomplished.
That hedge is also on the south.
It's by the backyard.
There's also, yeah, it goes on the
So
south.
it kind of helps shield the people's backyards where they would be spending time as well.
Yes.
Yeah, people live in their backyards, not along the side of their house.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
We have one more.
Oh, we have one more?
Yeah, I should submit it. Sorry.
Either way.
We have you down for the liquor.
I-1?
It was the sale of the property was the first one, but I don't need to speak on the liquor. What's that?
You want to speak on both items?
No,
Why
I
don't
don't
you
need to
just,
speak on the
go
liquor.
ahead and, go ahead and start.
And-
And you were here to be sworn in?
Yes, I was sworn in.
And Matt Lindahl seated 3 minutes for her.
You guys heard that? 6 minutes.
Thank you. She has 6 to
Sure. My name's Deb.
Just
Yeah.
1 second. Did you fill out a form to,
My
to-
husband did before he left.
Okay, wonderful.
Matt Lindahl. Okay, thank you. My name's Debbie Briggs. I live at 549 Oak Street. I live near the school and about 2 blocks from the site of the gas station proposal. When I moved here, we were considering a lot of different areas. I grew up in Michigan and I went to Miami of Ohio. And my roommate from both of those places thought I would love it here. And when she told me to come here, she told me, don't go down North Avenue. It's not nice that way. Come down Swift, go down St. Charles, and you'll see these beautiful trees, and it's a nice entrance into the town. And to be honest with you, we were considering a lot of other areas, and I'd probably be living in Barrington right now if I saw a huge gas station like this at that corner. It would not have distinguished Glen Ellen enough from Palatine, Arlington Heights, all these other places that we were considering. Just want to put that out there. Also, I just want to, for the record, I just want to say I oppose this project for all the reasons that were stated by residents in prior meetings and before me today. Thank you to the trustees for your service, your time, and your effort. We definitely appreciate all the concessions so far. I'm here to give a little slightly different perspective maybe than some other people. I'm an mergers and acquisitions attorney. I'm a deal attorney, so for the record, I'm not a litigator. And I'm here as a resident. For the better part of the last 20+ years, I've negotiated many sophisticated transactions, often involving the sale of real estate. And forgive me, because I haven't been involved in these negotiations, and I just found out about this relatively recently. With several clients, I've witnessed a phenomenon. It may explain what seems to be happening with our board here. It's called being married to the deal. It often happens in negotiations such as this, where over time, lots of meetings, perhaps over coffee, lunches, parties have gotten to know each other. They bond over the fact that they share a common goal, and in this case, it's the sale and purchase of real estate. However, at some point, one party loses itself in the process. In this case, I feel for the trustees. They have been asked not only to maintain the health and safety of the citizens of Glen Ellen, first and foremost, of course, but according to the economic development guidelines, they're also supposed to be ombudsmen to bring new businesses in and help them through our permit process. I appreciate their service, I do. These objectives are not always aligned. It makes it very difficult for you to do your jobs, and I appreciate the effort you've made to date. Well, from our point of view, it seems the trustees have figured out how to befriend True North. They have lost sight of the fact that their job is to get the best possible outcome for the village, and that maintaining the health and safety should be first and foremost. There may have been only one responder to the RFP process at this time, but that doesn't mean to do any deal at any cost. There are always alternatives, and the minute a party thinks there is no alternatives, they lose the ability to negotiate effectively. Even if the trustees believe that True North is the only viable developer, the trustees still must negotiate the best deal for the village. That doesn't mean accept all terms, studies, proposals that were submitted by the petitioner. What's at stake here, our health and safety, commands a rigorous process. Of course, True North will pick a blistery day in January to conduct its traffic study. I might advise that to my client if they were my client. But that assumes an arm's length transaction where the seller will conduct and submit its own study, presumably on a high traffic day. Of course, True North will put forth a huge revenue number. It's the trustee's job to challenge the assumptions made, to do its own competitive analysis based on its own independent investigation. I assume True North was advised to shoot for the moon and hope for something viable. This is what the village should have done too. When safety and health are involved, we deserve nothing less, and I believe it's reckless to proceed without more detailed analysis. What will True North do when this business failed? A couple people have already commented on this. A seller in the position of the village should insist on some remedy. I don't believe they've done so here. Nothing that I've seen in the contracts creates an incentive for True North to prioritize the profitability of this station over any other of their properties, over promoting their distributor business locally, or using Glen Ellen as their test case for residential monstrosities. Challenge the viability of the tax revenue dollars, the effective tax rates due to property value declines, or the loss of revenues from existing businesses that are shutting their doors as a result. So you know what you're getting, what you bargained for. With all due respect, the version of the contract on the public record looks like an early draft. It seems to fail to take into account fully the seller's interests, and it's not what you would typically expect to see from a fully negotiated arm's length deal. In an arm's length deal, each party puts its best position forward, challenges the other's assumptions, and then meets somewhere in the middle. Please don't blindly accept what is put forth without independent investigation. I've heard at least one trustee say that he is not an expert, and no one expects you to be, okay? We really appreciate the difficult position you're in, but then I think it behooves you to be honest with yourselves and perhaps hire a consultant or put someone who's a little bit more independent, who can help put our positions forward and also allow you to do your job as ombudsman for these businesses. Take advantage of the hard work, research, and well-intentioned efforts of concerned residents. You're lucky. You have at your fingertips, at no cost to the village, the fruits of hours' worth of consulting services and resources. Please use them. We're all in this together. We're not married to this deal or any deal with True North. We still have time to do the right thing. Ask for more time to evaluate new information presented by residents and experts. I think this is a reasonable request, and it shouldn't be enough to tank a good deal. If True North is willing to walk away over a reasonable demand by a seller, then maybe it's not a good business deal for either party. In my experience, a party who's afraid to make reasonable requests because of the threat of a deal falling through has already given up. You can't keep telling yourself this was the only deal. No, there's a better deal to be had, even if it is with True North, through informed negotiation. If True North cannot agree to reasonable requests that better protect our health and safety, not just aesthetics, then the best interest of the village dictates that the land that was purchased to beautify our gateway should become a park. And the village can focus. Excuse me?
You need to summarize.
Sure. And the village should focus on the 85 or so other vacant business units listed on the website in the other business districts in Glen Ellen. Thank you.
No one else has signed up? May I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to close the public hearing to consider an ordinance finalizing the sale of the property at 825 North Main Street and authorizing staff to proceed with setting a closing date.
Second.
Second. Any further deliberations? I have a roll call, please.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood?
Yes.
Trustee Lattice?
Yes.
Trustee McGinley?
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea?
Yes.
Trustee Senni?
Nay.
All we did was close the public hearing, right?
Closing. Oh, yay.
If we could start with deliberations or opinions, and remember we're talking about the whether or not we want to approve the finality of the contract term.
I'll be able to start.
Wonderful.
I have the same position I did when we ended our last meeting. We have had some other opportunities on this project. We floated it out there for several years since it's been under contract with the village, and this is the best deal that has come to us. The comment was made about that there should be a compromise in the deal, and I believe the number is up to 42 concessions. It may be more. Some of them I think were pretty straightforward. I don't think anyone up here supported some of the concessions that you gave in on at first, and you very easily gave in on some of those. A lit up canopy, the lit up shell, the rim of the canopy, and that type of thing. As far as comments that have been made about putting other businesses out of business, again, when there were 3 gas stations up there, that competitiveness helped to drive prices. And the same thing will happen with the convenience stores as well. You know, that convenience store, the 7-Eleven, it was a White Hen at the time, was open when there were not only 3 gas stations up there, but there was a grocery store right across the street. So again, you know, with the additional redevelopment of that of our North Commercial Business District, I think that'll foster this competitiveness against with the retailers that are up there. A number of people have mentioned traffic again. You know, there were 3 traffic professionals that have put together and/or reviewed the traffic for the development. The traffic study that we were provided in our packet that we all reviewed before the last meeting had some questions towards the back of that, and those actually this traffic study was put together over a year ago, and then several months ago there were some questions that were posed, and those questions were responded to, and that was in our packet as well. So again, as far as the traffic goes, something I'm completely comfortable with. Any development that at that intersection is going to decrease safety in a sense and will increase traffic. There was a comment made, Ken, if you're still here, there was a comment made about True North, you know, and maybe the resident was just making an example that he could read the article in the paper that True North continues despite violating state of Illinois regulations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would not be able to open or continue to stay open if you were going to violate any local, state, or federal regulations. Again, not a concern of mine. Stacy, have we ever sent the commercial project in front of the Environmental Review Commission, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, in the last 13 years that I've been here, no.
Okay. And again, if the station did violate any state, federal, any local, state, or federal EPA restrictions, they would A, not be permitted to open, B, would have to close. I do support the one resident who was a crossing guard for a long time, and I think that anything that can be done to add some school crossing signs up there, our police department and his staff, I'm sure would be willing to work with you on what would be safe. There is a phrase called sign pollution, where sometimes too many signs can be, and I learned that from our police chief, but with the sign pollution, with traffic directional signals, sometimes that can be counterproductive. But if we have to remove, some other signs so that we can have more school crossing signs, then I'm all for that. I guess, and lastly, I touched on it. Mr. Wallen, I think, had pointed out, and one other resident in the room, about intimidation. Some comments that were made at the last meeting and then quoted in the paper. I wasn't personally intimidated by anyone in the room. I think it's a part of our position that we are, in a sense, intimidated or vilified, I guess I could say, at points. But when there were comments made either publicly or in these emails or in social media that we were crooks, clowns, tools, that we were corrupt, that we were on the take, that's offensive. As far as intimidation, I'm talking about the intimidation of some of your neighbors, okay, who didn't want to put up no signs, okay, who were intimidated by you, okay, who supported the gas station, but were intimidated by you, and they didn't want to come out and speak in favor of the gas station. At last week's meeting, the protest that was out in front, when I pulled in the driveway, half of the protesters peeled off, ran up the driveway, shout with adults screaming at the top of their lungs, vote no, True North's got to go, or whatever the shouting was, scared the crap out of an elderly resident that was sitting on the bench out there, to which I walked over and I calmed the resident down and said, don't worry. He was like, what's this? And I said, don't worry about it. They're going to be gone in a minute. It will be fine. That's the intimidation that I was talking about, and that's the childish-like behavior that I was talking about. Adults screaming at the top of their lungs, scaring a resident to death. So again, all that being said, I continue to support the development as it is in front of us.
We're gonna go this way this time.
It's relatively similar comments that I'm going to make. I haven't changed my position. I certainly appreciate the comments you've made. And I do look for True North to be somewhat responsive to some of the comments in terms of screening and that type of thing. I would hope that we can end up with a traffic pattern that works well for everyone. I think that's going to be a static issue, however, until the station is well established. I didn't see the incidents that Trustee Ladisek was talking about, but it was clear that people wanted it to be very loud and boisterous, and I did see somebody that was a little taken aback by it. I don't know if it's the same person that you saw or not, but I think the number of concessions that True North has made, it is a negotiations process. They've certainly responded to our requests in a fairly positive manner. And as I said last week, I walked to Forest Glen every day for quite some time, back when it was a somewhat smaller building, K4. Past, well, I think initially it was 2 gas stations and eventually 3. And I know for an absolute fact, given some of my dealings with the Illinois EPA, that gas stations, chemical companies, that type of thing, are much safer today than they were 30, 40 years ago. The restrictions on them are enforced very carefully by the Illinois EPA, and I think True North's track record on that has been fairly decent from what I've seen. But in summary, like I say, I have some concerns, but not enough to not back the petitioner on this issue.
I cannot help but think that our predecessors, particularly those who expended so much time and energy preparing the village's comprehensive plan, had greater expectations for this development than what we've been able to deliver. But reality has a way of intruding upon expectations in unforeseen ways. So rather than lament what could have been put here, it is better that we turn our attention to what is now before us. The project must not be judged by personal preferences of a limited number of people in our community, but rather by the applicable law as reflected in the ordinances that govern our entire community. These ordinances reflect the sum total of our combined beliefs regarding the values and standards our community considers important. They reflect who we are, what we want our community to be, not just now, but for future generations of village residents. But these ordinances perform another very important function. They provide certainty to businesses such as True North to know that they can invest in our community with confidence that if they comply with our village ordinances, they will not be denied the opportunity to do business in our village because of personal prejudice or local bias. If we expect to attract business investment in our community in the future, we must preserve the integrity of the process by which those businesses seek to be permitted and licensed to operate in our village. If we do not, we have no one to blame but ourselves when business investment goes elsewhere. We preserve the integrity of the process by adhering to our village ordinances. If a prospective business can comply with those ordinances, they should be allowed to do business in our village, even if some segments of our community disagree or disapprove of the type of business that is being proposed. In contrast, if a business cannot comply with our ordinances, it must be denied the privilege of operating in our village, regardless of the financial benefit it may bring to our community. With regard to this project, the property is zoned C2, Community Commercial. Section 10-3-1 defines Community Commercial District as intended to provide basic services and convenient shopping for adjacent neighborhoods as well as the entire community. Section 10-4-14A enumerates the permitted uses within the C2 district. Gas stations are not one of the enumerated permitted uses in the C2 zoning district. But the inquiry does not end there. Section 10-4-14B permits special uses to be conducted in the C2 district, and one such special use is garage service station. Section 10-2-2 entitled Definitions defines garage service stations to be buildings and premises where gasoline, oil, grease, batteries, tires, or motor vehicles accessories may be supplied or dispensed at retail. Thus, the proposed development on this site is one of the permitted special uses allowed by our village zoning ordinances for this particular parcel. For those who believe otherwise, the remedy is not denial of the ordinance under consideration today, or the special use permit, or the variances. The remedy is to amend the village zoning ordinance or to change the zoning designation for the subject property. Since a gas station is permitted special use in the C2 district, it cannot be denied a special use permit if it satisfies the 9 criteria set forth in section 10-10-14E of the zoning code. Regarding these 9 criteria, it is the petitioner's burden to present evidence to establish compliance with each of the 9 criteria. The burden is not on the village or on its residents to disprove entitlement to a special use permit or a zoning variance. Residents may present evidence to rebut or contradict the petitioner's evidence, but the burden of producing evidence to establish compliance with the criteria remains on the petitioner. Moreover, I see nothing in the text of section 10-10-14 to suggest that a petitioner need only establish compliance with some of the 9 criteria. To the contrary, the use of the conjunctive term "and" at the end of the 8th subparagraph as opposed to the disjunctive "or" suggests that all 9 of the criteria must be met to satisfy the petitioner's burden to be entitled to a special use permit or a variance. I have on 2 occasions voted to table measures related to approval of this project. I did so not because of any personal bias against the project, but because I did not see in the record the petitioner had sustained its burden of producing evidence to establish compliance with all 9 of the enumerated factors. I did so to allow the petitioner or the village to come forward to present evidence in areas where no evidence or insufficient evidence had been presented. Despite this opportunity, in my judgment, these omissions have not been cured. While I believe the petitioner has satisfied the majority of the criteria, I believe it has failed to sustain its burden as to paragraphs 3, 5, 6, and 7. Regarding paragraph 3, the evidence in the record has not shown the proposed use will not be hazardous to existing or future neighborhood uses. One such neighborhood use is the elementary school Forest Glen, which sits 1 block from the proposed development. 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year, the school houses some of the most precious and vulnerable members of our community, our children. The environmental and traffic studies have not shown, in fact, they did not even address, to my knowledge, whether the proposed use would be hazardous to the students of Forest Glen. While there are studies conducted by the US EPA and the California EPA suggesting that stations with less than 3.6 million gallons of throughput pose no environmental risks to students in schools beyond 300 feet of the proposed site, there has been no site-specific analysis of what the impact this station will have on the Forest Glen students. I am unwilling to approve a project unless we have some evidence that will not negatively impact the health and safety of the students of our community and the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. As to traffic, a site-specific study was done of the effects the station will have on traffic patterns in the vicinity, but for reasons that have not been explained, the impact of those traffic patterns on the safety of the students at Forest Glen were not considered. These omissions fail to sustain the petitioner's burden on paragraphs 3 and 7 of section 10-1014. As to paragraphs 5 and 6, I have not seen sufficient evidence to establish the project satisfies these subparagraphs. There has been some evidence to show there will be a short-term economic benefit in the form of revenue derived from the sale of the land and increased sales taxes. As to sales tax revenue, the data on which these projections have been made were based on projected sales that was provided by the petitioner. Because of the perceived, if not actual, bias with which such data is endowed, it must be independently verified to be considered valid. This, to my knowledge, has also not been done. Nor has an analysis been done from which the board can conclude what the impact may be, good or bad, on property interests of residents in the surrounding neighborhood. I note on tonight's agenda, interestingly, we authorized the execution of an agreement to hire a consultant to evaluate the economic and public benefits of the project on the village that is going on the McChesney site. This would have been a model for the type of analysis that should have been done for the True North site, so that the village could have an independent view or an independent observer provide us with the input that we need to make this decision based on a full record. My motions to table the approval of this project were intended to allow the petitioner time to cure these deficiencies. Regrettably, those efforts have not been made. I say this because I think if they had been made, I have every reason to believe the necessary showing could have been made to satisfy all 9 criteria. But in the absence of such evidence, I do not believe the petitioner has sustained its burden, and I cannot vote to approve a contract for the sale of land that has not been shown to be in compliance with our village ordinances. While my view may be divergent with my fellow trustees, I respect their viewpoint and the vote of the board as a whole, and I encourage everyone else to do so. There is nothing in the record to suggest the vote was not fully in compliance with the requirements of the village ordinances or was predicated on any improper considerations. I have a great deal of respect for the judgment of my fellow trustees, for the village staff, and for President Demos. That respect has been earned over the past 2 years that I've been privileged to serve with them by their dedication, concern, and the countless hours that they have devoted to the betterment of our community. In my opinion, based on my experience, their commitment to our community is beyond challenge. Their dedication is beyond question, and their integrity is beyond reproach. So once the vote is taken, regardless of the outcome, my function as a village trustee is to support the vote to the best of my abilities. I urge everyone to do the same, even if you disagree with the outcome. There has been spirited debate about this project, and it has led to meaningful compromises by the petitioner that I think have benefited our community as a whole. But it's time for the community to put our differences aside, come together, and make this project as successful as possible. I hope you will join me in this effort. Thank you.
John. I have a couple questions about the ordinance. Mark, I think you said this, but I want to make sure that in the ordinance we have conditions limiting the hours of operation.
Yes.
And we will spell that out, 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. Sunday through Saturday, I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll add that to page 3 of your packet page 123, page 3 of the ordinance, on that first complete whereas clause.
Okay, then, the other thing we're voting on here is the access to the easement on the property, which here it just says an easement, and in the other ordinance, section M, I won't give you the dash dot whatevers, but it said it's a 5-year term only?
Correct.
Or am I confusing that?
No, that's correct.
So it's not consistent here, right?
Well, we didn't include 5-year. We can add that too if you'd like.
Well, I just want to make sure we know what we're committing to be specific.
But that is what's being proposed, that's what's been accepted by True North as one of the conditions.
Okay. This is nitpicky, but I think our third whereas, the village on February 22nd determined this is the best interest of the village and its residents. I just think that we just determined that the property should be sold. And then
I'm sorry, Trustee Cameron, did you say that again?
in the third whereas,
Yes.
I think we just say that determine that it is the that the property be sold and developed commercially for the purpose of.
Just take out that previous part of the sentence?
Yeah. What's not in here, which I thought we had either agreed to explicitly or implied, was that if, when the tanker refills, that it will exit the station heading north on Main or east on St. Charles and not south on Main. Now, I know you had said that you would do that, but I think we don't want the tanker going left on Main by the school because of the study that we had around the 1,500 feet of a tanker traffic by a school. I know the probability is very low, but I don't know why we couldn't have that.
It was discussed by the board, and we did not come up with that as a condition at the end of the meeting last Monday. So that's,
So was it not a I mean, I know I brought it up, I just didn't know.
It was not a condition that we approved.
True North said that was their planned delivery route, was to go to North Avenue, in and out. So how you want to memorialize that?
Well, I'd like it to be reflected in the ordinance. That would be my preference. So I think that's all the questions I have about the ordinance itself. Sorry, I have a lot of notes here, so to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, yep, no, I think that's it with regards to the ordinance, from my perspective. In terms of where I'm at, I get that this is a busy intersection and it is zoned commercial. As you guys know, my biggest issues with the project have been around the lighting, the sound, and the safety. I've been to most of the ARC meetings, the planning meetings. I went to the protest. I've probably emailed with almost everybody in this room in some form or met with you to discuss, to understand where you're coming from. Part of me, there's a lot of reasons to vote yes on this. As I told you, I have proactively gone out, and every dinner, conversation, person I'm talking to, I ask them about it. And there are people that do want this, so that that is out there. There is the tax revenue, and the revenue is significant from our perspective. I mean, it can fund 2 police officers or a couple of people in public works. So the revenue's out there. There have been incredible improvements on this design. I don't know. I love Diana's pictures, and I don't know if the configuration can be changed to bring that canopy in, because that's really the big lighting issue for me. I don't know if that's possible or not, but there has been a lot done with the lighting. That was a big issue for me. And oh, you know what? That just reminded me. In the previous ordinance versus this ordinance, we agreed the lights would go out when the business closed, but that also, if it's being cleaned, the canopy doesn't get lit up, right? Okay. So that, there's been a tremendous amount of improvement on the environment piece. Like I shared with you guys, the data I had at the last meeting around the environment. The sight lines I can't comment on. I mean, those are done by DuPage County experts. I appreciate your analysis, but I can't comment on that. To be honest, one of the biggest reasons I would worry about voting no is what would happen to this property. It may sit there, and then there'll be a future board, and maybe that board will say, you know what, we tried, we're getting a gas station. And to be fair to the petitioner here, these guys have built a very nice building. It's not what we want. I get that in this room, but it is a very nice building. I mean, it is brick, it is stone, it's got a sound attenuation wall. You guys know all this, and I know you don't want to hear it. But they have done a lot, and I don't know that anybody else would. And that's one of the biggest concerns for me about voting no, right? And I'm not sure that there are enough of that, but I worry about what'll get built if this doesn't happen. I worry that it'll sit there, there won't be a use, and there'll be a whole new board, and we'll go through this again. And I don't know that we'll get the concessions that we get out of True North. You know, this is not about walking away or being married to a deal. There are a lot of things that have happened here. And maybe they're not concessions, but they are better. A reason for me for voting no, because if I do vote no, I don't want it to be viewed as a political no, just to make people in this room happy. But it would be because I'm not happy with the Sunday through Thursday. I do feel this neighborhood deserves a concession Sunday through Thursday around lighting, sound, and safety. So, not exactly sure where I'm going to go, guys, but if I do vote no, I just want to make sure people understand that at least I do see that there is a lot of value in this project. And if I vote no, it's really because at the end of the day, I don't know. I get a bad feeling. I just have a feeling of what this will do and how this will be successful. I hate to bring in a business partner where, you know, he's starting with a bunch of people that are upset. And I just don't know that that's not a good feeling for me. So those are my thoughts. Either way, if I vote yes or no, you guys will know where I came on the yes and where I came on the no. Thank you.
Thanks, John. First of all, I just want to ask staff, we did an independent study on the economics of this by looking at some other measures, didn't we? Wasn't there some work done by the village that?
Yes, we did. We looked at other gas stations in the area, and some of that information is proprietary, so we weren't able to share the sales tax information directly.
But you and the staff have confirmed that the numbers that True North have provided are in the ballpark for the other stations that we have in the area?
Yeah, we expanded the range. I think initially they reported 145. I think we said between 120 and 140.
Okay. All right. You know, I think going off of what Trustee Kenwood said, I mentioned this last week. I'm going to say it a little bit better because I was tired. It was a long day, so I do apologize if I offended anybody, if I came across wrong. I was trying to make points, and it was really my only chance to make points. I don't like the process. I don't like how, you know, it goes to plan, goes to ARC, then comes to us, and we get stuck with the vote. I hate it. Okay, I think the plan and ARC have a lot to say here, and I just think that Trustee, future Madam President McGinley's got some work to do. It's something that we wanted to take on as a board and really never accomplished much, but I think there's some improvement that can certainly be done in this whole process. So with that, I mentioned about Elmhurst, and I see this as a very similar situation, where they had a piece of property that's sat vacant for years. The board didn't get as far as this, but it certainly, they maybe through pre-planning or something, the board felt that it wasn't the appropriate use of the space, so it got turned down. It didn't really go far. The Thorntons, I believe, just pulled their application. Sat vacant for another 4 years. No money, no tax revenue, just a vacant site. I understand it's vacant, there's trees, it's pretty from your perspective, but it's really not, I wouldn't say a gateway, a for sale sign on a corner property that should be a really viable corner in the village, should be occupied. As I said, if we had the money and we had more commercial properties like Downers Grove and some of these other lucky communities by us that we could put this on as a park and develop it there, I'd be all for it. We just don't have, we're landlocked. We talk about it in all of our meetings for 4 years. How can we find more commercial space? How can we get more tax revenue? It's something we talk about constantly in all of our meetings. And I just have a really hard time saying no to this, and then knowing, as John said, that a future board and future developers are going to look at these meetings and look at these minutes and look at the objection and look at the opposition and say, I don't want to go there. the money, the time, the effort to get something through. And I'm not blaming you. I think it's great. I think you all did great. You made it a better project. But, you know, we really are afraid of change. And I know this is not the best change. I know it's not the best alternative. I know it's not what you want. But we didn't have bakeries, and we didn't have restaurants, and we didn't have fast food outlets who came. And as I tried to say again Friday, or last Monday, all of those are going to bring a lot of the same problems. Lots are going to be cleared, trees are going to come down, there's going to be lights, there's going to be hours, there's going to be traffic, there's going to be safety issues, there's going to be kids crossing streets. So when I said that a lot of these were false statements, and I think someone quoted me today to say that there were a lot. I said a lot was false. I meant false in that whatever gets done there, those same issues are going to come up. And we're going to just be going through it and fighting it again with another developer. We have to be, I've never had lunch with True North. I've never had coffee with them. I've never had an email from them. I've never met Ryan or his team since I shook their hand, I think last week when they said thank you. So there's nothing going on, at least with me, and certainly the integrity of this board is very high in my mind. I don't think there's anything going on. And unfortunately, you know, the comments that Trustee Lattisak said, and he and I got dragged through this week, which is fine. I'm a politician. I should have thick skin. But when I went to my wife, come on. When people say you can go to my house, that's not a threat. That's not intimidating. That was posted on social media Tuesday morning. My daughter saw it. Not right, guys. Not the right way. Certainly, I got a week left. I'm off. Happy to talk to you guys. I tried to be open. I tried to tell you early on, I'm happy to have dialogue. I'm happy to meet with you. People call me crooks. I said, go have a coffee with me. If I'm still a crook after you have coffee with me, fine, call me a crook socially. Put it in the media. I don't care. But you don't know me. You don't know a lot of these people. So that was really disappointing. And I'm worried about the future of this village when we have 2 huge development sites coming. And what's going to happen there? We have more developers who are willing to come and develop. Are they going to be afraid because of the money, the time? It scares me. So with all that being said, you know, we talk about the landscaping. No one said that your hedge was bad last week. I know it was late. No one said we weren't listening to you. I think that's why the board said let's put $10,000 because it was Arbor Day as a donation to put more trees in. And to do it right away. This is not something I think that anybody wants to do in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We want to work with True North when they're going through the landscaping plan, find these holes and do it. And, you know, someone else said 750 wasn't enough. We talked about that clearly. That's going to be in conjunction with the construction project with their landscape architects to say, what can we put on your property additionally for $750 on your property that you want, that you get to pick. And I believe, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were going to help and your landscape people were going to go through and help with that installation. So we've answered a lot of these questions, and the things keep coming up. And I just want to make sure you understand. I agree. Safety is not going down with this. We understand it's going to become a more dangerous intersection. We understand it's not going to be as safe as it is today for your kids. But anything that goes up there, with the exception, even a park is going to be dangerous for kids. They're going to be riding their bikes to the park. Now you're bringing kids to a dangerous intersection where cars hit a sign at Walgreens. Nothing there is going to appease everybody in this village. Long time ago, through Plan and Arc and through emails I received, it was like, okay, well, if you get a gas station, don't make it 24/7. That's a win. You know, I hope you guys see that you know, True North backed on that one, and that was good for everybody. And we'll talk about liquor later. I'm not going to get too much involved with that, but I just want you guys to understand that there's nothing personal benefits for me to put a gas station at this station. Yeah, you're right. I don't live next door. I don't live behind it. I understand, but I'm not gaining anything. I'm looking at the best interest of the village. And my quote last week was, I'm looking at the greater good of the village because I am. And because of that, because of the lot being empty for 6 more years or losing $600,000 of tax revenue over that time just to have another gas station potentially get put there, again, having to go through this whole process again, we're not going anywhere. We're just moving backwards. So as far as, you know, I understand your situation. I understand your anger. I understand. I appreciate all your comments. I wish I could have stayed active in social media, and I wish I could have engaged with you guys more, but I think I put a post out there and said I can't talk anymore because it's just everything's a personal attack. Anything I said, I think Diane posted some things, always got turned negative, wasn't constructive. I just had to stop. I had to stop answering emails too, because emails were being taken and being put on social media, and my words are being distorted. And that's not good for any, and I'm not blaming anybody. That's just how it happens. You take an expert out of a quote, and people can read it different ways. I hate it. But I want you to understand that I am still for it. And I wanted to apologize for my abruptness last week. I was trying to be clear and concise. It didn't come across that way. Lastly, we have talked, I think ARC, or I think it was Planning Commission, asked about better visual crosswalks. So Mark, I'll leave that with you and DuPage, but I think raised crosswalks, lighted crosswalks, reflectors, whatever we can do, signage, crossing guards, all for whatever the village needs to do to make sure that we can make that intersection as safe as possible. So I think with that, I'm done.
To begin, my position also has not changed, but I do want to begin by stating the same thing, which is that I also appreciate the residents' input. If you look at this project from the beginning to where it is today, it has really improved, and that is the part of the village process that I enjoy. I agree with Trustee O'Shea that things do need to change in our process, and things do need to be looked at and continually looked at. And it's something that actually benefits with President Demos appointing me to this position once we understood that I was running unopposed for president, so that I could already be in place with things happening, and I understood momentum and projects that were coming into place for when I took office. So my pledge to you is that I'm not done listening. I am here, I am listening, I will be in that seat for the next few years, and I welcome all of you. I thought tonight was done very well, and I have not been out there as much as my fellow trustees. I think I took myself off social media a little bit sooner, but I also took my role a little bit more to the extent in that this particular project went a different route than normal in terms of bouncing between commissions, board, back to commissions, and back again. And I was trying to be very clear on when I was supposed to speak and when I wasn't supposed to speak. So, and that's something that we as individual trustees all interpret maybe a little bit differently. And I took my role a little bit more to the extreme of not speaking until I believed I was supposed to. I want to thank Joe Abel. You put a lot of time and effort into this, and you utilized a lot of your talent into this plan, and I think it shows. I agree about the school crossing signs and in that corner. I've actually reached out to Dr. Gordon, and he and I pledged together to go out to that site many times, as often as it takes, to make sure that he is satisfied, as well as the village board and the village staff, that we've done what we possibly can within the limits of the law to make sure that things are addressed, and anything we can put out there without adding confusion will be done. The Walgreens issues were brought up a lot, and without knowing the process with Walgreens and things, the only thing I can say is that we can't address things unless people call in complaints. Sitting over here, I don't know if Walgreens lights are on or not at 2 o'clock in the morning if I do not go past them. So if there's something going on, if the canopy lights are not turned off, call it in, email it in, and we will respond. The village does respond to resident complaints.
Trustee McGinley, I just wanted to say, Mike, I probably will get an update on where we are with that, so we'll get together this week and I'll fill you in.
Andrew, 3 minutes are almost up.
And the only thing I will also echo is in terms of dealing with True North. I did not even know who this gentleman was until last week. I was sitting there writing down as they spoke who they were. I had never spoken to them, never received an email from them. I shook your hand at the end of the meeting, And then I think I said hello to you because I recognized you walking up the stairs today. That has been my extent of conversations and communication back and forth with True North. I go through staff. I go through President Demos, I go through the manager, I go through the village attorney for my questions. And that is how the process is supposed to go. So really, I'm going to wrap up that I do support what's before us today. And again, I pledge to continue to listen. Dr. Gordon and I have pledged to work together in working on that corner. And I believe we're also going to talk about some other school improvements for different projects and different processes, as I have extended an invitation to him, as well as the board, to start talking about things earlier than from when the village is presented with these plans.
Thank you. I'm going to just talk a bit about the process because it was brought up, and Trustee O'Shea and Trustee McGinley hit on it a bit. I've never had a personal conversation. I've never engaged anyone from True North in an email. I refuse to do that. I feel that my responsibility sitting here is to provide the hearings and the meetings and to oversee the meetings, to look, to listen, and then ultimately act as a jurist. I do believe, and I want everybody to know, when it comes to thick skin, I always say that in my position, I have to sit here with a Teflon coat. And I have not taken anything that's been said personally, but I've taken everything that's been said to heart. And I have followed it. And Joe, I do think you did a good job. I was a bit upset with something you said at the last meeting where you said I shouldn't have to do this. And the process of the village and finding the equilibrium and trying to find the common ground, finding the compromise. Compromise is a situation where nobody is absolutely happy, nobody gets to take the ball home, but it's the evolution and the contributions that you provide, whether we're upset, whether we're not upset. Diana kept communicating. I think we kept communicating, although you were wrong. I did 2 cars. Initially we did one. You didn't keep it, and then you needed another one. We did one that was red and one that was white years afterwards. So, working together even in adverse conditions, not turning our back on each other. We live in Glen Ellyn. It's easy to say we live in Glen Ellyn. I've run into people that live in Glen Ellyn. I know people that live Glen Ellyn, and there's a distinct difference. But I've tried to provide the same process, the same hearing for every development. The fairness to the petitioner, the fairness to people to be heard. I know that we've created some conflicts here when I've had to tell people that it's enough time, it's frustrating, it's aggravating. I know that the village, regardless of the decisions that are made, will continue to come together. There will be an equilibrium and an evolution, and there has to be accountability. In terms of the ordinances here, I'm comfortable with the commitment that they're not going to go through downtown. I think that we can address that also in ordinance in some fashion moving forward. The canopy lights need to go out, but I also there has to be a reasonable time. If you're closing at midnight, there may be somebody that's there at midnight and a specific and set time, and that set time needs to be accountable to. I did not truly understand. I would also like to add the condition. It's a small gap to fill between the arborvitae. My interpretation of filling the gap would be in the area between elm and as we remove trees, and in the future having the ability to supplement that area, adding the condition to continue that to the petitioner to continue that evergreen row. I think that that's a reasonable expectation, and that brought forward that should be a condition, and again, it doesn't look like it's a very long area, and they're in a position to do that. That frankly should have been part of the process. That was a continuous hedge. So if we do move forward to it, I'd like to add that filling that gap between the east and the east wall and the south wall. That area on the petitioner, and then what we would do, and I thought to be responsive to the to the residents. You know, they had a plan for the balance of the area, but that gave us some latitude working with our forestry department if we wanted to reforest that in an additional manner. Was really my consideration, not just to fill the hedgerow for the developer.
Was your intention to allocate a portion of the $10,000 towards the completion of that hedgerow?
No.
I mean,
I think it's
that's-
reasonable to look the commission, to look the petitioner and say, filling a hedgerow as you're building a supplement, the additional buffer area, the planter, I don't think that's a considerable amount of money, so.
I don't think so either. That's why I think that I would be in favor of that, allocating a portion of that $10,000 that we committed to benefit then the whole. You know, and I think that there'd be more than enough money left over. I don't think there's that many hedges there, and then $200 or $300 for at least 8-foot hedges, depending on what types of evergreens would go there. But
Well, we
I mean,
can
that's my 2 cents.
allow the motion to be made as amended and discuss it for, or if we want to run down and discuss whether the trustees would be comfortable with that as a condition, an additional condition.
The only thing I would offer is that at this point.
And this is to the sale. I'm looking to close the sale. I'm not looking as a condition to a special use or anything else, but the additional condition that they fill that gap. Is that,
Well, that would not fit within the definition of a traditional condition to a special use.
I'm
It
not
could
talking
certainly
about a
make-
condition to the special use, I'm talking about a condition to the purchase contract.
Well,
An additional condition.
Okay. Well, you can certainly insist that the developer fill in the hedgerow as part of the process, and if you can make that part of the motion, that would be fine, that would be appropriate.
So with everybody,
I'd be good with that, with filling that in.
Likewise.
what?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you need to amend the motion, we can just incorporate that. I'm sorry.
So we would incorporate that into the contract and then as amended.
Ordinance, better than the contract.
Or in the ordinance?
We'll put that as part of the ordinance that we approve tonight. It will be subject to attorney review to
Yes.
be able to insert some of the things that we've talked about tonight and make this an accurate representation of what the board votes on.
Wonderful.
Okay.
You ready?
Have a motion?
Mr. President, I move passage of ordinance number 6500, an ordinance of the Village of Glen Ellen finalizing the sale of property at 825 North Main Street and authorizing staff to proceed and set a closing date.
Second.
We have a first and second. Any further deliberation? May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood.
I am for the hours of operations and the easement landscaping, but no on the sale of the property, so no overall.
Trustee Lattiser.
Yes.
Trustee McGinley.
Yes.
Trustee O'Shea.
Yes.
Trustee Senning.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Do I need to vote on that? I would vote yes, with those conditions in place. We're going to, at the request of an older individual at the dais, take a few-minute break.
3 to 5 minutes.
After us. M&M's.
If we could call the meeting back to order at 10:07. And we're at item I, amend liquor control code to increase the number of permitted Class D3 liquor licenses.
President Demus, you've just given my presentation. The way the liquor code works in the Village of Glen Ellyn, the board approves a set number of classes of liquor license for various types of facilities, restaurants, grocery stores. In this case, the relevant part is that there is a class of license D3 for convenience, gasoline convenience stores to serve beer and wine. So the action that is before the board at this moment is to increase the number of licenses of Class D3 from 2, which, as you know, are right now possessed by the Shell station at Park and Roosevelt and the BP at Lambert and Roosevelt. This action would increase the number of licenses available for True North to 3, except it doesn't give the license to True North at this time. What it does is it would make the license available. True North has filed an application for a liquor license. The corporation and its managers have to go through the process to qualify to receive a liquor license of this class. That is not happening yet. That includes things like fingerprinting, background checks,
Bassett training.
Bassett training, which is training in how not to overserve, or sell to minors. This is kind of, if I wanted to really oversimplify it, those who teach it would probably criticize it. Anyway, so this action would fulfill the term of the sales agreement that we worked out and the board has approved a year ago, and then tonight has approved also for the finalization and close of that sale. This would fulfill one of the requirements for True North's entry into the agreement.
Okay, do we have public comment on this? We have people signed up?
Debbie Briggs still here? She spoke earlier, but she's also signed up to speak on this issue. Debbie Briggs?
And if you spoke earlier, you can speak again on this topic if you'd like to.
But I think I would register that I think she's mentioned in passing that she was opposed to the issuance of the liquor license because of her opposition in general, I think.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is 100% impromptu, so I'm sorry to take your time this evening, but I struggle with the idea of additional alcohol being available. I don't know, and this is just public comment, I don't know why our society today revolves around alcohol, why events in our town are issued licenses for liquor, and I see parents walking around holding beers and drinking wine as their children look admiringly at their parents. I think it sets a disgusting model for our future generation. Disgusting. And I really think that alcohol causes problems. It's hard to believe that a station that sells alcohol to motorists would then allow, somebody's going to get in their car. I can tell you, I've walked up St. Charles Road for many years with my kids to Montessori. There are so many beer bottles and cans thrown on the side of the road. So and that's without a station there. So I can only imagine with a station there, people are going to drink and then they're going to toss their cans or their bottles out to the side of the road. So I think you're encouraging drunk driving, but more importantly, for those of us who live in the area, I mean, it's comforting to know at midnight lights go out, but it sounds like from 12 to 5 you can't sell alcohol anyway in this state. So that, I don't feel like that's a win. I am concerned that people could hang out behind the station, essentially in our backyards, and be drinking. Because I think high school kids. I think there's a young family that lives to the left of 7-Eleven, and they describe the misery that they have to contend with. The needles, the bottles, the people who hang out in that alleyway between the side of their house on Elm and 7-Eleven. I really, I mean, if you're telling me that a gas station simply cannot exist without selling beer and wine, but apparently there's one in Naperville that does, I don't know about that one. I think that in our town, we can be a pioneer and maybe approach this a little differently. And then in the last 36 seconds, I just want to say for the record, I know, you know, you're intent on seeing this through, but I am saddened that we did not turn this into a positive opportunity for our collective village and involve the community, involve the students, involve the teachers, involve the parents to come up with a very productive project and find a good, exciting purpose for this corner. None of you sound that excited about this, which doesn't inspire me as a resident. I don't see any enthusiasm. It sounds like, well, this is what we have to work with, and I mean, that's not good enough. It's really so beneath our standards as a town. So I'm sorry it worked out this way.
Kristen Bockelman?
I don't have anything prepared to say about it. I spoke about it earlier. I can't see any reason for there to be a fourth.
Could you pull the mic down a little bit, please?
I can't see any reason why there would be a fourth liquor license or liquor store on that corner. It's just as unnecessary as this entire gas station. It's dangerous. It's not needed. I don't have anything else to say about it other than that. It seems completely excessive and yeah, poor form. We don't need a fourth gas station on that corner.
Other speakers, Mr. President.
Other speakers? Are there trustee comments, deliberations?
I just had a question. The 7-Eleven that's not a D3 license?
It's not.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but I know it's not D3.
Okay, but it's the same convenience store, same hours, same restrictions.
In this case, I think it's simply, it's one
Or
of the.
grocery?
I believe it's D-class, and it just doesn't have gasoline.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they sell till midnight, is that right?
As far as I know.
And they cannot
They can.
begin selling until 9 a.m. unless it's Sunday, then it's 10 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Good.
And how late can they sell?
I think it's midnight.
Midnight.
Midnight?
And there's no other gas/convenience store in the area that we prohibit this at? Is that correct?
No.
Shell at Park and Roosevelt, I mean, sells wine and beer. as
Well, and the
well.
BP. I'm just saying any
Oh,
other
and the
convenience
BP,
to you.
right, yeah, right.
I'm just trying to think if there's any exceptions that there's not that I can think of.
Well,
Good.
I guess a question about the class D3. So when I looked at the D3, unless it's somewhere else, there are no hours associated with it, right?
The hours of selling the alcohol are set out in a higher, farther up in the code, and it's standard that the hours for sale of alcohol is, what do I say, 9 till midnight, unless otherwise dictated in the code. So this one is controlled by the general hours.
10 on Sunday.
Yes.
So there's an appendix basically that says here are the hours.
There's a code.
It's a larger portion of the code that governs everything.
Governs all
And then
type
there's
of
the
license.
subsections of classes, I think as was being pointed out.
Is that a state mandate, the hours?
Is what?
I thought that was a state mandate, or is it not?
Well,
No.
that's,
We
that's
follow a
that's
state
right
mandate?
out of our, well, on some things, we can be more restrictive. That's right out of our code.
Okay.
But, I mean, I would agree that, I mean, it's a part of their business and the other businesses around there have it. So I would agree that they, that they are entitled to a liquor license. I guess my only thing, sort of similar to what I've been pushing on most of these things, is when I look at what's being sold there, Walgreens, the discount liquor store, they're all pretty much shut by, the way I understood it, 10 to 10 p.m. The 7-Eleven does longer, Monday through Thursday, then 10 to 11 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, and then 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sundays. So I guess I'll still throw out the idea of some consideration for, a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on a Monday through Thursday, and then 10 a.m. to midnight on Friday and Saturday.
Are you talking about just they're controlling the hours that they can sell liquor?
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of their business model, and everyone else has got it in the neighborhood. I know it's busy, it's commercial, but we have a chance to kind of mitigate the noise that goes through there. It is a little more residential, and so 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday consideration, and weekends till midnight.
People that go there to buy alcohol at 10:30 at night on Saturday, you're just going to leave and go to the 7-Eleven. And I'm just saying, it's just going to cause more. It's not like you're going to prohibit it because there's a store 2 doors down that sells till midnight. I just don't know what you're gaining there. I understand what you're trying to do. I get it. But that area is still going to have that traffic to a place 2 doors down that's going to be buying. It's even closer to the homes.
Right. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Okay.
Mark, do you have any comments?
So it's easy for me. C2 commercial district, community commercial, one of the permitted uses is liquor store. The hours are set by statute. They're conforming with the hours. They're conforming with the zoning requirements on use. They're entitled to the license.
Dean?
I agree.
Any other comments?
No, I agree. I mean, I think this, again, more of a formality. We issue these very commonly, whether it's to St. Pat's or to the chamber or whatnot. So we're just kind of formalizing a prior agreement.
Just a question then on the discount liquor store. Is that a different class license that they can only sell till 10 or 11 p.m. because they have hard liquor? Is there a difference between hard liquor and wine and beer?
As I sit here, I don't know the precise factors related to their liquor license. I don't know, Stacy or Phil, do you have any? I think that they could, sitting here right now, and I'm shooting from the hip, which maybe I shouldn't do, I'm a lawyer. But I would speculate that any hours reduction that they impose on themselves come from an imposition on themselves and their business model as opposed to something else. They would ordinarily be authorized to sell from 9 to midnight.
There is a class difference, though, for establishments that sell hard liquor versus just beer and
Yes,
wine.
yes.
So, again,
Absolutely.
if you look at the breakout of it, I mean, I'm a liquor commissioner, Mark Phillips, president, is the head of the liquor commission, and we see these things all the time. So every time I look at them, I see these A, B, C,
Yep.
and very slight variations.
18
Nail
different
salons that
classifications.
could serve, martinis for certain hours and stuff. But again, it's, so these are very commonly issued.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to move passage of ordinance number 6501 VC, an ordinance to amend the Liquor Code, Chapter 19 of Title 3, Section 12, restriction on number of licenses of the Village Code to increase the number of permitted Class D3 liquor licenses.
Second.
Second. Any further deliberations? May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood.
Yes.
Trustee Lattisak.
Yes.
Trustee McGinley.
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea.
Yes.
Trustee Senni.
Aye.
The next item is item J, DuPage County Forest Preserve lease of maintenance property in McKee House. We've had a long bit of a discussion or presentation on this at the last workshop. We had directed staff to consider that 2-year window to extend an additional 6 months so the committee could get a bit more time. For the first thing, that negotiations with the Forest Preserve were successful. And I think Manager Franz, I don't know what you want to add to that, if you want to add to that, but we're asking the board to approve the authority to be able to move forward on this.
Yeah, maybe I'll just summarize the business terms, but this is to enter into a 50-year lease, renewable lease of the St. Charles Fleet Facility, currently and still going to be owned by the DuPage Forest Preserve. There's 2 facilities. One is the St. Charles Fleet Facility, 2 buildings. The McKee Structures, 2 buildings. The term would be, or the value would be for $1 per year. All structures would have to be demolished at the end of the lease if the lease is not renewed. The village would be responsible for all aspects of the property, including snow plowing, parking lot improvements, etc. Forest Preserve would have access to the gas pumps that will continue to be on site. Village has the ability to sublease the McKee Structures to a third party. The agreement would limit it to the Historical Society, COD, Park District, or subject to the review and approval by the Forest Preserve. So it doesn't restrict just to those 3, but if it's another outside agency, it would just have to be approved by the Forest Preserve. The anticipated cost to stabilize the McKee Structures is about $230,000. To renovate the McKee Structures is somewhere between $1.3 and $2 million. Again, the village would not be taking on any of that risk. We'd be facilitating a third party to do that fundraising and develop a plan that would be reviewed and approved by the village. If the village or third party is not able to raise $400,000 by October 1st, 2019, and get so that's one kind of a pressure point, and then they'd have to be able to restore and get an occupancy permit by October 1st of 2022. The village would be responsible for demoing the property at the village expense, somewhere in the range of $20,000 to $40,000. The Forest Preserve and Village would both contribute $25,000 to these restoration efforts if the 400K is raised by October 1st, 2019. And the village would intends to annex the property from the village of Lombard and also from unincorporated Lombard. There's 2 different parcels. By April 1st, 2019, thereby these properties would be in the village limits. We'd control the permitting process in perpetuity moving forward. Lombard has voiced support for moving forward with that at our time schedule. So we also included some additional potential costs, but clearly this is a much cheaper alternative to building a salt dome or some of the other things we've looked at over the last few years. So staff recommends approving this lease agreement with the Forest Preserve and getting a stakeholder group together in the near future and begin the process of potentially restoring the McKee Structures.
Just one quick question. If, relative to the McKee building, if that funding is not raised, at what point do we have to do the demolition on it? If no funding is reached, no funding level
I think
is
that'd be
reached.
mutual agreement as long as we do it, and we're showing progress on that sometime after that deadline, the October 1st deadline. I think the Forest Preserve would be satisfied.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
Just a question more personal than anything else. If they raise $350,000 and it's not enough, what happens to those funds?
Well, if it's $350 and the Forest Preserve kicks in $25, we can.
Okay, so it's $320.
Okay.
They're
Actually, no,
$10,000
no, it's gotta
short.
be
I'm just
40,000.
curious, what
It's gotta be
what
40,000.
happens to those funds? 'Cause
That would be for their group to decide. That does happen in fundraising
So
circles.
who is that? That's a McKee Restoration Organization?
Whatever the
That's
group, they have to decide how to fund the money or refund the money.
Okay.
Or find another cause that their donors agree with.
Can they renegotiate the price at that
But we're not.
Well, you're talking about, could they come to the board? And I had this discussion,
thinking-
frankly, if they were close, if they came to both boards, the village board and the Forest Preserve collectively could offer some relief, but it would have to be substantially near. They're looking to draw a line in the sand and say, here's an opportunity, here's a deadline, turn the thoughts of preservation into actions of preservation, and move forward. So it's a definitive path. But the boards are always capable of, amending if there was an opportunity with the Park District or something, they could amend that.
But just to be clear, the intent for future boards is there's a deadline.
Yes.
There's a time frame.
It's a very clear intent.
We worked with all parties to come up with something that worked, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Any further comments? Are there any public comments on this item?
I just think it's a great solution that you guys came up with, so congrats to you on that.
It does.
Ducey couldn't resist.
We know who you are, so you can talk.
I wanted to thank both boards and just for all the effort of, one, getting it to this point, and extending it that 6 months. And I really think with a concrete goal, it makes all the difference in the world. When you're trying to raise funds and it's like, well, I'm gonna tear the building down, well, we don't know, well, why would I give you money? This way, it's concrete, and it's also a great thing to the salt storage.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you. Any additional comments? May I have a motion, please?
Julius, I told you we could get that salt dome.
Yeah. This
Before
one's for
Tim
you.
left. It's my last motion, I think, of my career. So it's all for you. Mr. President, I bring forth a motion to authorize the village manager to execute a lease agreement with the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County for leasing of maintenance property at Churchill Woods and certain property commonly known as McKee House property, subject to final attorney review.
Second.
Second. Any further deliberations? May I have a roll call, and I do vote on this, Al.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood.
Yes.
Trustee Ladison.
Yes.
Trustee McGinley.
Aye.
Trustee O'Shea.
Of course, I made the motion. It's supposed to be first.
So?
Sorry.
It's okay, yes, of course.
You're doing fine.
You're throwing us
And
curves.
then President Demos.
Yes.
Al, great job tonight, by the way. It's not even-
Carries. The next item is K, reminders.
First, I'd like to thank Julius for clapping at the right time this meeting. Good job. The next village board meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 8th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the Galligan Boardroom. That'll be the meeting where we swear in the next board, so mark your calendars. And the next village board workshop is scheduled for Monday, May 15th at 7 p.m. in room 301 of the Glen Ellen Civic Center. Also, if I can just make a quick public announcement, our phones are down in the Civic Center, so non-emergency line calls are not going to be coming through here for a while. We hope to have it corrected by, they tell us 2 a.m. Tomorrow morning. Sorry about the inconvenience.
Just a question about the May 8th meeting. Is that purely a seating meeting? Or is there other things on the agenda?
There will be some consent agenda items, and we're going to reserve the right to add an item if necessary, within the legal boundary of time. Any other business? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? We're adjourned.
You gotta give me my last motion.